That new bag of candy?
Hey, why one?
Yeah, he
Just
just hoards
one
them
for
for
later
himself,
in
he doesn't
case I need
offer to
it.
share.
No, it's an old business.
That doesn't matter.
I got a thing for you. Oh, I got a bag for that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what the camera will be.
Well, I'm coming, yeah, but I'm gonna be down there. at
Wait,
6
where's the
to
camera now?
6:20 or
It's up
whatever.
there.
You wanna get it- you got it with you tonight? I'll take it tonight, or if you don't, I'll
Yeah,
get
you
it
ready?
in the morning.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm
You ready?
good.
We'll call the meeting to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks.
I'm good right now, I understand. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Thank you very much for being here. We are live stream on Boxcast. If anybody has any questions during the presentations tonight, Lori will be contacting the presenters, and my cell phone is on 315-952-3795. If you have any questions. Any changes, deletions, or additions to the agenda?
I already have what I need.
Right. Pam, you have anything?
I'm not reviewing that speed limit.
No, we changed that to Attorney Spencer.
You did,
Yes.
okay.
I got that thing on the police
Car?
things that
Yep.
everybody got in their mailbox that I put in there. I
Yep.
was hoping that they would show up here sometime during the week. I put it in there.
Under
Do you have-
DPW, there's a
do you have an
resignation
agenda in
under
front of
C.
It's in my box.
Number D
I
will be a
looked in
temporary
mine.
hire. Number E will be a retirement and a rehire. Under roundtable, there'll be a C, solicitor's application. D, community development, public hearing. I have a few more for the roundtable, but they're just not very specific items, so. Any other changes or deletions?
Mine's that Public Safety Advisory Committee
I've got that.
draft plan.
D,
Everybody's
and I
gotta
also
get one
added-
in their mailbox.
For the fire
During the
department
week.
chief's car from the town, too. And just before we get the meeting started, there was 3 people that just turned 90 in the last few weeks in our village. And I just wanted to say to Faith Hall, Jack Malone, and Peter Olson, happy 90th birthday. It's pretty remarkable that we have 3 village residents turning 90, and I just want to wish them on record a happy belated birthday. So we did send Faith a nice card.
Faith,
Faith.
Peter, and who else?
Jack Malone turned 90 today.
Oh, yeah, Jack.
Yes, so he lives in the Orchard.
Did you go?
Oh,
I took him to church this
Did you go
morning.
to church this
I
morning?
did go to church this morning, so,
When you remind me.
sorry.
Oh,
So,
God.
with that, we have the meeting minutes of February 22nd, 2021.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes?
Moved by Mike, need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dennis. Anybody have any changes before I go through mine?
I have just one thing, that in the part where we talked about the crosswalks to go, where should the crosswalks go in? I don't know, Mike, if you had been also said to put in a crosswalk at the Nice and Easy. I had said that. If you said it too, then, you know,
Okay,
if you
Just
didn't.
somewhere
I
in
said-
that, yeah, somewhere in that general area because of the possible development on the property next to the Nice and Easy and the Nice and Easy and the school and stuff. So either way, if you want to put your name on it, that's fine. I don't have a problem either way.
okay. Lori, under Public Employee Health Emergency Plan, just so everybody knows,
Is
there.
the door unlocked?
Yes.
Who unlocked the door?
I don't know, but I tried calling and I answered.
No, I know that. Let me go lock the door. Mark.
Please, we'll stand by.
Lori, I can do
put
it.
one in front of you, I thought. You don't
No,
have
I don't
one?
have one.
Oh, yeah, that's the way it, you know.
What's that?
I never got an agenda. It's not in my box. I don't have one.
How are you, sir? Good, how you doing? Good. Just so everybody knows, we're on Boxcast this evening, so there's a TV and a live streaming this tonight. Lori ran.
Ran.
Lori ran.
Yeah, I told you.
So under the Public Employee Health Emergency Plan, there is no public hearing required by law. So we're just, it's basically got to go to the 2 bargaining units or however many bargaining units you have, which we have done. So there is no public hearing requirement. And then under Limestone Bishop's bid award, the first paragraph, it says there was a face bid. So I think that was supposed to say base bid. So that was
He
all
gave me
the
his.
changes.
Well, here's who,
There's the only changes to the agenda, or to the meeting minutes.
okay.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is abstract 17 dated today in the amount of $55,184.32.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Did you have a chance to go through them, Dan?
Yes, I did.
And everything is in good?
Anything that I had a question about was answered by
Okay.
Lori.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So next is Waterside Commons Review and Update. We have Matt Nafarella here, who is our village engineer, who has reviewed it. We have the developers. Greg, anybody else with you? I'm sorry.
Gordon Stanford,
Okay.
our partner consultant.
Okay. So you will be speaking on behalf of the developer?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to be, just so everybody understands, this is going to be an update, and then a chance for each engineer to ask questions, or us to ask questions. We will table this to the next meeting, where we will start the seeker process. And we're going to review it and start at section 2. And that will not be a public hearing, but it'll be, we will review it like we have in the past. So,
You mean the secret?
the seeker, yes. Okay, we're ready?
Good evening. Maybe I should start with the letter from Mr. Nafarella relative to the site plan design. That we responded to his comments of February 4th on February 15th. I think prior to that, we'd already addressed the other ones. And if you'd like, I'd go through item by item. There's not too many of them.
Yeah, I think that
Fairly
would be,
short.
right.
So one concern, some concerns that he stated that should be kind of considered as part of your seeker process. One includes impact of flooding. And previously submitted a study from Cloth Harbor Associates relative to floodway floodplain impacts of the project. That study was reviewed by both your engineer Shoemaker and also FEMA. Found that the project as designed does not have any significant impact on either the floodway or floodplain. And there was a lot of going back and forth. We did some tweaking to grading to make sure that, we addressed their comments, that sort of thing. So that, I think, has been resolved. One other comment was there should be a concern or make sure we address is the impact to historic and archaeological resources. The project was submitted to SHPO last year and received a no impact notification. There was some, there's nothing on the site. They wanted to make sure the building fit in with the historic nature of the village, and it was deemed to. Another comment was impact on transportation. And I know that was one of the concerns the board had. A lot of back and forth, some studies were done. We did go discuss with the county and state DOTs relative to traffic. What has changed over time has been that this is now right in, right out only.
So Route 5 is right in and right out. Hybrid Street to one entrance is right in and right out.
Correct.
And then Thompson Street is left or right.
So on Highbridge, it'll actually be a island. It'll be curbed, brick line, that sort of thing, and able to have a crosswalk going across it, right out, right in, and that'll be the only movement allowed.
Can I ask you a quick question? Sure. I just did some more of a video. So if I come and I'm coming down Highbridge, the only way to get in is to go Thompson?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
no, you can get in Thompson.
Yes, that's what I just said.
Yeah, so any traffic that's coming south on High Bridge, if they wanna come into the site, they have to go to Thompson, take a left and then a left into the
Right,
site.
but people coming down High Bridge can get in up farther, right?
People coming north on High Bridge?
Yeah,
They
headed
could come in
north.
through Thompson, or they could come in through
Right.
the driveway here.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
You got this one.
And with this plan, the DOTs have signed off on the impacts. Additionally, those impacts were reduced by the reduction of number of stories and corresponding number of units for the building. So we went from, I think, 50 to about 40 units. So that had an impact on the amount of traffic. I know that was a concern, so those are some of the factors that have kind of mitigated those impacts. Consistency with community plans, and consistency with community character. I think part of that has been kind of addressed by the planning board. We've been through a planning board process on this, and they referred the plan here after we have made some modifications. We did things like bring the building up to Genesee Street, street line, like the rest of the buildings, addressed a lot of concerns relative to the building's character, that sort of thing. And I think it falls within what at least the planning board envisions as the community character and consistency with that character of our particular site. And with that, I mean, they did review the traffic circulation, all that, you know, basically exact same site plan with some minor modifications like that right in, right out is what they referred to for.
So at this point, the biggest two changes were the 5 stories to 4 stories, and then the right in and right out on High Bridge. Is that?
I think those are the two biggest.
Okay.
I mean, there's been minor
Right.
modifications, you know, some changes here, things like, you know, for the FEMA stuff, but those have been relatively minor compared to those two big ones there. Project parking requirements, we are showing 121 spaces. I know there's been some discussion about the 118, 121. The extra 3 come with the easement that we have to park on these 3 spots here. Back for any, you know, this was thought out, there was an agreement made between the 2 property owners relative to cross-access easements. I provided those as part of the last review letter. So basically, we are maintaining access to this gentleman's property here and all the spaces. If you can see, there's a nice drive aisle, and which is part of the requirements of the easement. But also, we have use of 3 of his spaces. So that's where the 121 comes from. To be frank with you, I think I've looked at this project so many times I couldn't remember why I kept coming up with 121 instead of 118, and that's the reason behind it. If I can keep moving with these, and Mr. Stansberry will come up and talk about parking, I think it'd be, you know, better if I just keep going with my comments. And we can talk about parking space size at the same time. So we'll go to item number 8. The releasing of Fifth Street, I think that was something where the board had previously stated that was something that could be feasible, was the abandonment of Fifth Street, which really only serves these properties of the project. And this gentleman here will still have access from this driveway to his property, which I think was part of the Fifth Street thing, and that will be part of any easements that will be recorded prior to approvals. The 3 curb cuts on Thompson Street, you know, currently, one of the reasons I brought this over plan is currently this is all asphalt from here to here under current conditions. So we're actually reducing that, and we're not having people backing up on Thompson Street. So it's kind of historically been used as part of the site, let's say. We're trying to reduce that. I know there's some potential people doing this. You know, I think that's kind of relatively minor comparative to everything else. I think it helps the site function very well. Plus, there's very limited uses on Thompson Street. I mean, this one here basically gets served by this driveway here, and this use here is the only other one that really uses Thompson Street, other that minor use there, and they're all of commercial type nature. I did talk to the fire chief, and provided the fire chief with a turn template for the site of the truck that the fire department uses. That truck is able to access the site even through the right in, right out. So what we're going to do is this right in, right out here, it will have a curb. It'll be a mountable curb. The fire department will be able to just ride right over that curb and enter the site this way. They are able to come throughout the whole site here, come in there, come back here, back up, leave in any direction. They are also able to do this if they want. Their trucks are a little over 11 feet. The height of this here will be approximately 14 feet. So, you know, if that becomes an entrance they want to use, or for some reason they got to come here, you know, we can also work with them. I said, you know, to make sure that if we give them some access through here, do whatever we can to kind of, you know, give them other access points to the building. I know there was some concern about how far away they are from the building. You know, quite frankly, it's kind of hard to maintain, you know, close proximity access everywhere, just like a lot of other places in the village, where you go to some of the other buildings and the main street, and you've got cars that are parked in front of those buildings. You know, you kind of need to be careful. All the building issues that he brought, the other issues really were internal issues, which we 100% will address during construction plan set. You know, whether it's the pull boxes, the knock boxes, the building be fully sprinklered, that sort of thing. So I think we're comfortable that we'll be able to address his concerns about any major modifications to the site plan as we move forward. That was all I had on my letter other than parking, and at this time I'm going to have Gordon come up here and address any of your, oh, I'm sorry.
Can I ask you one
Sure.
question? If you go to issue number 9, it says Thompson Street is limited use street and current site has the entire road frontage uncontrolled. What does that mean?
Well, I think, you know, one of the concerns is, put this plan down just because this is kind of colored, so it's a little easier to see the distinction between asphalt and green. We are providing landscaped islands to kind of limit that access.
Yeah, I see that.
Currently, it is all asphalt, pretty much, you know, from the right-of-way line on High Bridge all the way to Mr. Thompson's building, or Mr. Talbot's building. So there is, you know, 3 access points on Thompson, but, you know, it's reduced from what it is today. And our thought is that although those are going to be used once in a while, as somebody might come down and there's no parking here, they're going to come through this way. It's not going to be a primary access point in any way. Without those, it becomes kind of the site becomes kind of claustrophobic a little bit, and you've got a lot more tighter turns, that sort of stuff. If this was a different street, you know, if we're in High Bridge or if we were on one of the other village streets, I would say that could be, you know, problematic. Being that it's such a limited use street, I really don't see that being a problem at all.
So in other words, at the end of all the lanes between the parking, then you could actually come down there and take a right and get onto Thompson, right?
Correct.
That's what it means by uncontrolled.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I would say uncontrolled sounds scarier than it really is. You know, these are presumed stops on any driveway when you come out onto a road. You know, you need to yield to that traffic that's on that road. Same kind of thing would happen here. You know, we are kind of trying to control it with those islands and keep it so it's not a free-for-all in any way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any other questions on stuff that I've covered? Okay, and I'll come back up, and if something comes up,
Okay.
and Gordon will talk to you about parking.
Good evening. I'm Gordon Stansberry with GTS Consulting. I'm a local traffic consulting engineer. I am a PE and a PTOE, Professional Traffic Operations Engineer with ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Where'd you learn your math?
What's that?
Where'd you learn your math?
I had this math teacher, he was rough. Gave me a hard time, but it wasn't too bad. Evidently, I can still count cars, so. So I was contacted in early February, just with the sole purpose of looking at the parking for this site. I haven't been involved with the traffic impact study or any other work. So my understanding, based on what was presented to me, is that the development currently includes 30 apartments, a 5,215 square foot restaurant dining space, presumed to have seating for up to 100 people. A 2,335 square foot tenant space, assumed to be a hair salon with 6 customer stations and,
Could you slow that down a second? I thought you said 30 apartments, but I thought he said 40. So you
my
were,
understanding, the current number is 30 apartments?
Yes.
so you were presented with 30 apartments?
Yes.
And a
Yep.
restaurant size with, say
It's
that?
5,215 square feet. That's
Okay.
the dining space,
Okay,
which will include seating for up to 100 people.
100 people,
A 2,335 square foot tenant space, which is assumed to be a hair salon.
mm-hmm,
And we're assuming 6 customer stations. So 6 people could be getting their hair done
Mhm.
simultaneously. And a 1,860 square foot tenant space, which is undetermined at this time. So I looked at it either as a coffee donut shop, that's the drive-through space, or a bank, to see which one would have a worst case parking demand.
okay,
So based on the current proposed uses, the village code says that they should have 208 parking spaces. They currently have, at the time I looked at it, I thought it was 122. I understand it's 121 parking spaces that they are providing on the site.
mm-hmm,
So what I did is I went through the IT Parking Generation Manual, 4th edition, and did a detailed review of each use independently to determine when each use would peak their demand, and then kind of figure out what their demand would be at the various parts of the day. So I looked at basically 4 times a day: overnight, early morning, midday, and evening. Looking at each use, I won't go through each one in super detail, but for the apartment use, the peak parking demand is overnight. Obviously, that's when you expect everyone to be home. Based on the IT, I use the 85th percentile demands versus average demands to look at kind of the worst case, the design value that we would use. Based on the 85th percentile demands, 30 apartments would generate 48 parking spaces as their peak demand. And then based on data that they've studied over the course of a day, the typical morning demand is about 75% of the peak. The midday is about 50% of the peak, and the evening is about 70% of the peak. So based on that typical range of demand for an apartment, I can say that the morning would require 36 parking spaces, the midday would be 24, and the evening would be 34. So now I have demand for the apartments for each time during the day. Similarly, I looked at the restaurant use. Based on 85th percentile demands, we assume no demand overnight because it's closed, no demand in the early morning because, again, it's not open. The midday, the actual peak demand is typically in the weekday evening, which has a peak parking demand of roughly 73 spaces. It's 0.73 spaces per seat for a customer. And then the midday peak parking demand is 37 spaces, which is 50% of peak. Similarly, I have data for the Saturday also, if you want me to go to that level of detail. The hair salon, the IT trip generation or parking generation does not have specific data for, so we made some assumptions for that use, assuming that the peak demand would be on a Saturday morning or Saturday midday, with a lower demand in the evening on a weekend evening or a weekday evening. So for the peak demand, I assumed 6 employees, 1 per station, 6 customers, 1 per station, plus 3 customers waiting at any given time. So a peak demand, assuming a car per person, would be 15 parking spaces for the Saturday morning or the Saturday midday. And then I assumed that parking demand would fall back to roughly 2 employees and 2 customers on an evening time period. Similarly, on a weekday, maybe a weekday midday, it would be about half of the peak demand, or 8 spaces being needed. So then I looked at the flex space either being a coffee shop or a bank. The coffee shop is the higher generator for traffic compared to a bank. But the coffee shop's peak demands are weekday morning or weekday midday, with a much lower demand in the evening, no demand overnight because, again, they're not open. So once I look at all of the uses, then we look at the peak demand overall for the weekday morning, weekday midday, weekday evening, and we find that the peak demand occurs in the evening primarily based on the restaurant and the apartments. And ironically, was no number massaging, but the weekday peak demand came out to 121 parking spaces for the evening, 104 parking spaces on the midday, 75 spaces in the morning, and the 48 spaces overnight being that peak demand for the apartments. On a Saturday, the demand came out to be a peak evening demand of 110 parking spaces, 105 during the midday, 76 in the morning, and 34 overnight, because some people tend to travel on weekends, so you don't have that same apartment demand. So what this really comes down to is, if you looked at each use independently, you come out with a peak parking demand of 171 spaces. But in reality, different uses peak at different times of the day. So the morning, you're going to have the coffee shop, the salon, and some of the residential generating parking spaces. People go to work during the day, they're out during the day, so their demand goes down. Your demand starts to go up for the restaurant in the midday, and then in the evening, the salon, the coffee shop is not generating so much traffic. Now your restaurant and your residential is the peak demand. So they balance out. And it's important to recognize this in development in urban areas. I recently went to an IT conference, a virtual conference that was talking about parking demand in urban redevelopment. And one of the big problems they have with redevelopment in urban centers is parking codes, requiring too much parking that then debilitates the ability to redevelop or infill parcels that need to be redeveloped. So would this 120 spaces potentially have some instances where they are maxed out? Quite possibly. But with the 85th percentile demand, we would expect that that would only be maybe 30 days out of the year for a brief period, probably in the evening when you're maxed out at the restaurant versus the residential. But that's why you start to look around the building and around the area, on-street parking, area parking lots, people willing to walk a block to go to a restaurant when you're in an urban setting, and that gives you a level of a factor of safety, that you have some overflow capacity. But the general conclusion is that this parking would be satisfactory on an 85th percentile confidence level most of the time. So I'm happy to take any questions or expand on that. I'm sorry that I kind of went through a lot of numbers.
Are you assuming it is?
I assumed a standard high quality, high turnover restaurant, like an Applebee's or I wouldn't expect that it's going to be a chain based on my discussion with the developer. Maybe something like a Kirby's, which isn't a large chain, it's more of a local.
So I'll sit down.
These are just examples, these are not names.
No,
I just want to make sure people understand.
Yeah,
Just asking.
yeah, I don't have any knowledge of what's going in here, but the expectation is a sit-down restaurant. You typically, an hour for dinner, with a bar or a lounge, so it has the drinking component to it. So it would fit most of your typical restaurants around here.
So you're saying that the parking spaces can be 40% fewer than code, and it's okay?
Based on the detailed review I did, yes.
And that's a similar conversation that we had, that the planning board chairman kind of had alluded when they had sent this over. That was kind of their feeling too, that parking wasn't an issue, especially with the changing demographics of what people are doing now.
What size parking, like, spots did you use?
Based on my understanding, the current proposed parking spaces are 9 feet by 18 feet. I understand that the code is 10 by 20. I did review this briefly, looking at overall design standards nationally for parking spaces. Generally, a parking space has a minimum width of 8.5 feet to 9 feet. So this does fall within typical design thresholds. And then the length of a parking space varies between 16 to 20 feet. So the 18 feet again is in a standard threshold range for parking spaces. You know, and I would acknowledge that, you know, someone comes in here with a, 3,500 pickup truck, they're gonna be a little tight.
Sure.
But the majority of vehicles are getting smaller. Other than, well, you get into the SUVs, the big SUVs and stuff, but.
Cars are definitely getting bigger. Without a doubt.
Okay.
Okay.
I could give a constructive comment or two rather than a question. And it could probably still make your numbers plausible. For example, the apartments, I don't know if you have the numbers crunched for the exact age group that the apartments are there, and I don't know that as far as the salon goes, if it factors in that salons are now, their peak times aren't necessarily Saturday anymore, that they're open in the evenings and people choose to get their hair done in weekdays more than Saturdays, and you definitely have peak weekdays for that for salons. And I definitely see that the trend goes for, you could have these, this number be okay for it to be 40% and be able to make this parking offset in other areas, so long as there is a generous option outside of that parking lot. Is that parking offered close enough nearby? And we've had this discussion in this board a lot for this very plan. And I know we've talked under the bridge and we've talked in these different places. And when it comes to these types of businesses, I think that these tenants, there is no guarantee for any of whether or not these tenants will want to make it, if it's more difficult for them, will they stay? We don't have the prediction on that. But is it easy for them is the big question in my mind. I guess that's the big risk.
Yeah, and I'd like to, let me take one at a time.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go with the parking space size. One of the vehicles we drive is a Yukon. I'd have no problem fitting that Yukon in one of these parking spaces whatsoever.
That's a question.
Yep. But just in general, we're not picking on anybody.
Okay.
So, one of the things that sets it apart is the aisle is not 22 feet, it's 24 feet. So you kind of balance those parameters. 9 feet, if I was gonna put 9 feet in a parking lot for like a Target or a Price Chopper where there's shopping carts, it's a little trickier because now you've got people trying to load cars up with shopping carts in between them, that sort of thing. There isn't any of that. This is strictly you're gonna open a door, you're gonna get out, you're gonna go to a restaurant, you're gonna go to your apartment, that sort of thing. So the wider drive aisle, if I was coming in here and proposing a 22-foot drive aisle, that's a tighter radius. 24-foot drive aisle gives you a little bit more radius, and so you can pull in. At 9 feet, picture your garage, typical garage, 24 feet, including a snowblower, doors opening, and that sort of thing. So that's functional. For a village setting, okay, if you take this parking compared to some of the other parking, for this one here, for this plaza here, it's not atypical of a village setting, those numbers. And you know what, if there's no parking here, there's, you know, somebody's not gonna stop for dinner if they don't wanna park at one of the village lots and walk over. You know, or park on one of the side streets where there's parking allowed and walk over. You know, and one of the common things now is, you know, people are taking Ubers to dinner. They're not even driving to dinner. So those scenarios are changing dramatically as you know, as we even go through the approval process for this particular project.
Handicap parking included in the number?
Yep, per code. You know, there's 6 handicap spaces, which is above and beyond the code,
Yeah.
actually.
But that sort of impacts your number, I mean,
Yeah, that takes out.
it's
6
sort of a
spaces.
minus. I know you gotta do it, I get it.
You know, you do it, and
It is what it is.
well, we do it because you kind of need to balance it, you know, and,
No, I get it, you gotta
Yeah,
have them.
yeah.
I'm just saying it's a minus on the big
but
number.
it's still, it's
I would argue, though,
121.
that in parking demand generation, and these sites that they've studied had handicap parking spaces as well.
Okay.
You know, still, it's part of the demand usage. You know, a lot of restaurant customers are bringing mom to the restaurant and, you know, using the handicap spaces.
And it is 30 units. I apologize, I'm still fixated on the 5 floors that we came in here with, you know, with the plan that was referred by the planning board, which had the 5 floors, same number of parking spaces. You know, we just wiped out a, you know, quarter of the apartments and, you know, have maintained those parking
How many
spaces.
floors is it now?
4.
What's the height? I know, I knew it once.
With the
but I-
peak, you know, with the peak, it's 51 feet.
You guys measured some buildings locally around here. Is there anyone that's 51 feet?
You know, that's a great question for Bruce. I can tell your firehouse is more than that, your village hall here. I think this is similar in height to some of the buildings across the street. You know, it's a 4-floor building. It's not, you know, I know in public comment period, when we had 5 floors, there were some comments about this being, you know, taller and all, but like 5 buildings in Syracuse, and it's not even, that's not even, you know.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not-
yeah.
so, you know.
I just had heard that the Bundy, in Limestone Plaza, there's a few buildings with the
Yeah,
peaks that are.
Bundy's-
There is, yeah,
that
those,
are
I mean,
51.
I think when,
I think it's
when
important to
Bruce
get-
came in, he
yeah.
gave you guys those things, and I apologize, I didn't bring those. I tried to find them, he's got them, I couldn't even find them on my thing to print them out. But there are a series of buildings that, especially in stature, because of a little bit of a height, are even, you know, gonna look much taller, say, from the side. But, yeah, that's come down, so that's come down a good, I think, 11, 12 feet from before. And I don't think you wanna get rid of peak roof, to be frank with you. I think, you know, I think that's kind of blends in with the character of the rest of the buildings and the.
No, again, I think that the planning board is more than capable and able to work through that. Look,
And before I forget, we need to, my last comment had to do with that drive-through donut thing, but we can get back to that, you can finish.
What was the
it up.
comment?
Drive-through donut shop.
So, there is, I think Gordon's looking at it from the worst-case scenario. The last I heard, there was a bank that was wanting to go in there, that they were working with a bank. And then the one space where we assumed like a spa, hair salon, I just assumed that kind of a use, to be frank with you. It could end up being a retail use, like, you know, one of the shops or something, which, to be frank with you, would be a lower impact from everything from traffic to parking demand. The restaurant is not gonna be a chain restaurant, as far as I know, unless something's changed with COVID. It is gonna be more of a high-end type restaurant. You're probably looking more of something like the Craftsman or something of that sort.
okay.
Garrett Evans, that sort of thing. So it'll be, you know, I think Gordon's being very conservative in what he's presenting to you. And that's perfectly fine, because I would rather have you guys, you know, see the worst case scenario than me sit here and tell you, okay, this is gonna, you know, be a lower impact than what it could be.
What happens when your residents get so frustrated they can't park, that they demand parking spaces? Because that happens. So what happens in that scenario?
I'm not
Then
sure
what
if
happens
that's,
to
I'm not
parking?
sure I see the scenario that's gonna happen, to be frank
Well, I
with
have it
you.
right out back here. and we have mixed use. I mean, it's happened everywhere. I've been to a million mixed use places where it says, hey, you got parking, and that's all right. I mean, it is what it is. I'm asking you what would happen.
Yeah,
What would
I
happen in
mean,
your
you know,
scenario?
if that ends up being where, you know, one reserved space has to be for each, and this is what happens sometimes, is, you know, maybe each apartment gets one reserved space, so there's 30 spaces taken off the table, and now you still have 90 spaces left over for the restaurant and that sort of thing.
That's similar to what we did here, we had to do here because
Oh, I
of
know.
Bullet Bear.
Yeah, but Bull and the Bear could probably fill every one of those parking spaces and then some. I mean, this isn't that packed of a restaurant type of a use. Could it be someday? I guess. But,
100 seats is not small.
I agree with you, Dennis, but that's up to the management too. I mean, I totally
just
agree
asking.
with it.
yeah, 100 seats. 100 seats. I mean,
I'm not saying he's right or wrong.
yeah,
It's
no, I
just-
mean, I agree. You know, I think all three of us approached it from slightly different scenarios. I mean, you know, Gordon went through ITE numbers. I sat there and went through Urban Land Institute type planning, traffic, parking studies that we've done, trying to see the same kinds of uses and what could happen. And, you know, we came up with, to be frank with you, when there was 5 floors here, it was not great. 4 works good, it really does, and especially in a village setting. I mean, if this was plopped out in the middle of nowhere, okay, and this was the only parking available, period, it's one thing. But you've got 30 units that are gonna frequent that restaurant. You've got, I don't know, maybe 400 units within a reasonable walking distance. I mean, if I lived in the village, to be frank with you, I wouldn't be driving there. You know, I'd be walking to any of these restaurants as opposed to driving. You know, that's what you get in a village setting. It's different than being in a suburban, non-village type setting. You're much more of an urban type setting in that respect.
Can we let Matt just kind of talk just a
Sure.
little bit? I just want to make sure that we hear Matt's comments, so.
So, a couple questions I had. Does the owner group anticipate designating spaces for any individual user? Restaurant wants spaces closed, tenants want spaces closed, hair salon deals with, you know, a different dynamic type of customer who wants spaces closed. Is there any talk among the owner group about that in your parking scenario? Again, when you look at the site plan, you really don't have a lot of spaces nosed in close to the building.
Yeah, and I'll be frank with you, it's something I'm gonna have to ask them. Nothing that I've heard of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, could I see some spaces being designated? You know, maybe the you know, one space per apartment could end up being designated at some point in time. You know, if they were, I'm sure it'd be for somebody that's gonna be there all the time and not, you know, just somebody who wants to park close to the building for 15 minutes a day every once in a while. I can find out for you.
So I don't disagree with Gordon's philosophy and the way he's approached it. As an engineer, we always deal with factors of safety. You have 0 factor of safety. You're showing 85 percentile, and there's gonna be 30 days out of the year, of which potentially we have a problem. I think someone needs to look at where those people are gonna go. The plaza across the street, non-COVID times, that place already has parking problems on a Friday night. I mean, I think everyone here can agree to that, right?
They're
When
parking in the fenced off area now.
It's,
They're using it for their employees.
You know, so I think you need to take a look at and say, and I don't know what the number is, but when I take a look at what you said, Gordon, and we have 48 spaces evening for the apartments, 73 spaces evening for the restaurants, I'm already at 121.
The 48 spaces are the overnight. That's the overnight number.
You know, I don't want to interrupt your line of thinking, but my only disconnect with that is that when people come home, they're coming home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. And now less people are traveling to work, and who knows how long that trend lasts, but let's just say pre-COVID trends. I mean, people come home at 6 and they're there, and the question is how many cars do they have per apartment, right? That's the big variable. But You know, what happens if it fills up and you have 48 spots, and they're gonna be home when the restaurant's just kicking in? That's my only disconnect with your numbers. Like, it doesn't add up in my mind. Like, they absolutely go like this at the wrong times. If this was a day use, then it'd be, I don't think I'd have the disconnect,
No,
but.
I certainly understand what you're saying. There's, as I said, there's a fine line that if you're gonna have a pinch point, it's gonna be that late evening when the restaurant is busy and the apartments are busy. Based
Well, let me
on.
stop you. It's 6 o'clock
Yep,
until midnight, if there's a bar,
yes, if,
or later. Well, say midnight, then
so,
most people are-
so a restaurant typically peaks in the 7 to 9 range. And then, yes, it's open till midnight, but it's not usually full bore, you know, that late into the night, full restaurant dining. There'll be people at the bar still. Based on the peak parking demands for apartments, the peak starts at 10 for apartments. It doesn't start at 6 o'clock. I understand people are starting to come home from work, but people are out doing errands, people go out for dinner, people are doing other things in the evening also. So based on what I looked at for historical studies, the peak parking demand for apartments occurs between 10 PM and 5 AM. And then that parking demand at the 6 PM period is roughly 70% of the peak evening time. So when I say 48 is the overnight, it's the overnight, 10 to 4 in the morning.
Right.
The peak around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock is more in that 34 or 35 cars.
Okay.
So it does continue to increase as you get later into the evening. Similarly, for a restaurant, the peak time for a restaurant based on the studies is 7 to 9 PM. So there's that point around 9 o'clock where you can start to see some friction between the apartments and the restaurant. But when you say going to midnight, the restaurant business is going down from 9 to
Oh,
midnight.
absolutely, it's going down.
So as that's going down, the apartments are going up, you know.
There's
It's
definitely.
not,
a
I'm
number
not
that
saying
go.
it's a perfect science.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, this is my best guess based on the data that I was able to review.
I understand.
And even though it isn't that many cars, the peak hours for a salon is 4 to 7. Weekdays.
From what I've understood looking at,
20 years ago, it was Saturdays, but it's weeknights 4 to 7.
okay, and from what I've seen in the data, that I talked to a couple people in the Chenango area where I am, they said that typically they have seats maximized in the midday and usually 1 or 2 stations open later in the evening. So I'm not sure, you know, if that's universal or not, but I understand the concern. And to answer your
We'll get
question
some
about
data on
traffic
that, because I'm
safety,
curious.
Well,
now,
I've been
too.
doing here for 36 years.
Yeah,
I'm just going by my own data.
Right.
You know, as far as the factor of safety, I think that the 85th percentile is kind of like when you look at a shopping plaza. You know, we don't design to Christmas, we design to the 85th percentile. Understanding that at Christmas time, we have a parking problem for a certain number of days, because if you over-design and you design to the max, then you're going to have empty pavement. And nobody likes to see empty pavement sitting around anywhere, especially when we have a sea of pavement at a shopping plaza. Excuse me. So I guess that's where I would argue the factor of safety being the 85th percentile and not the average.
And again, I think to the village's point, we're looking at a significant relief of the code. The code is saying, and no question the code is a bit excessive for reasons of timing. But when we're looking at, what was it, Dennis, a 40% reduction or 30% reduction in code?
40.
That's a concern that is real among the trustees and part of the discussion. And that's really, we're trying to wrap our heads around of how we can, you know, look at this thing and making sure. And I think, you know, I think the board, it's for them to deliberate, and we're just trying to lay out the facts here.
So when you talk about 30 days, 30 bad days, are you thinking that it is more along the lines of a Christmas or a holiday time, or, because that's every 10th day, well, every 12th day, basically, there's a bad day. It's almost 10% of the year, right? Almost 8% of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, how are you envisioning that when you start thinking about this and modeling it? How do you envision those bad days? Or are you saying like, look, holiday times and Thanksgiving times and traditional, what we might think of as traditional retail times?
mhm.
You know, if you kind of help me understand when that happens, I think it's easier to kind of,
Well, and I guess, you know, when we look at 85th percentile, we're talking about, you know, the 30th highest hour in a year. That when we look at traffic, when we talk about, you know, traffic impact studies and everything, we tend to look at 85th percentile as being the design. We don't want to design to the max just for that reason, we don't want to overbuild everything. So on those days, if there's a higher demand for the restaurant or there's that overlap in the apartments, then those people will either come in, and as Greg said, they'll come in, there won't be a parking space, and they'll leave because they don't want to deal with it. Or they'll find an area parking opportunity and walk to the restaurant, which is typical of a village setting. I have not gone through at this point and looked at what the other parking options are. I mean, that's something that we could certainly evaluate if we need to look at it. But I would argue that, you know, people are tending to move more toward the Uber driving, especially with the bar setting, because as drinking laws get more strict, people are getting less willing to drive. So those type of Uber users or you know, other taxi services are going to reduce the parking demand. So, you know, is the traditional parking demand going to stay that way, or is it going to continue to decrease with driving services? You know, on the reverse side, the COVID has made more parking demand for residential because people aren't going out as much. So there's always a little bit of a crystal ball to exactly how things are going to evolve. You know, certainly, as I said, we could look at the same question you asked. You know, what are the other parking opportunities within? Generally, they say walking up to 800 feet in an urban setting is comfortable for someone. When you look at how far are you willing to walk to go to a restaurant, or how far are you willing to walk to your apartment if you had to park off-site. So we could look at that, but I don't have that information tonight.
Matt,
So-
did you, I was gonna say, did you have anything else?
So the second time brought up was Uber. An Uber or a transportation from the senior center or from our senior homes. That introduces another challenge of where's our drop-off area on this site and how do we do that safely for, again, we've got the cruise ship, as everyone affectionately calls the project up the road, which has bus service and such. And say, okay, I got a group of 10 people. So if we're gonna say that we're gonna do this reduction and we're gonna encourage drop-offs, then I think the site plan needs to address a safe drop-off as well. So I think, again, we're struggling a little bit with the reduction in code, but if that's the option, then I think we need to designate something for that purpose, if that's our relief. But if not, then, so my other point, and I know it's not you, Gordon, maybe more Greg, we look at the hybrid street right in, right out, and the mountable island scenario, and we all know that it looks good. We know that when we sit in DOT meetings, DOT hates those because they're not functional, and people will make that illegal movement. We all know we don't design for illegal movement. But what was the queuing traffic that precipitated that to be a right in, right out? And what is the danger if people are making that illegal left movement into that first driveway off of High Bridge? What's your cue on that red light?
The queue, once in a great while, on any possible given day in the weekday, is about to the driveway. If I was to design for every possible scenario, there wouldn't be anything built in this village, flat out, period. Okay, if I was gonna design for a drop-off area for avocolis, we'd take out 4 spots in the front. You're not doing that. You know why you're not doing it? Because my drop-off area is gonna be right here. Or it could be here. And you take 30 seconds, you drop off your wife. Doesn't have to be an Uber. It could be me just dropping off my kids. Okay? It works. Does this work as a mountable curb? I don't do anything with mountable curbs on those anymore. Because when we do them, without mountable curbs, all I get is phone calls about slit tires. Because the second you hit a brand new curb, that's granite, you're getting a slit tire, especially on a turn like that. So, is this gonna deter everybody? No. There's a crackpot every single day. I drive a Jeep, I can go over to any curb like that anytime I want. Am I deterred? Absolutely. Okay, first of all, it's not safe. Second of all, as soon as the village police see me, I'm gonna get a ticket. So you can only design for so much. So mountable curbs, we do them all the time. There's one over at Aldi's on Genesee Street. I bet people take that illegal turn in there once in a while.
All the time.
But you can't stop it.
I know.
Because the alternative is, you put a regular curb in there, pop, or,
Well, that would stop them.
well, it would stop them, it'd stop them dead in traffic. So you know, there's a limit to what you can and can't do. So, mountable curb, absolutely. There's a limit to what you can keep people from doing that's stupid. Okay, 85th percentile, overflow parking, 30 times a year, not for a day, okay, for a peak hour or something of that sort. The alternative is, you get what the planning board will never approve, which is town center. And I understand that. There's a parking lot over at Shopping Town, okay? When that ball was fully occupied, okay, I could take my kids driving there, okay, and they'd never have a chance of hitting a car. Because you take that 400 or 500 parking spaces that were parked like once in a great while when the state fair was in session, and the rest of the time they're empty. To design for that again would be foolish, especially in today's environmentally conscientious times. And this is a village. It's not even town. It's not even town center. Okay, I mean you're that's a harder to walk to place than this here is. I mean, this is here because it's in a village setting. It's got residences around, it's got a business around, it's got uses where somebody may park over here to go shopping and then walk over to have dinner. It happens all the time. That's the beauty of being in a village. So it's a different design standard. If you were going to hold us to that 208 spaces, if you're going to hold everybody coming into the village to those 208 spaces, you'd have a really hard time proving anything.
Matt, did you have anything else?
Nope, good.
You agree with what he was, what his replies
No,
were?
again,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of.
Other than the traffic.
For your sake.
He's bringing up points that everybody needs to consider, and
Nope.
I understand that 100%.
I would say I appreciate, Greg, what you did tonight, and I think that what Gordon was saying was showing us what else is around is going to be helpful. But I will say, and I mean this with all respect, I've had to deal with so many complaints about Bull and Bear, about Avicoli's, about Limestone Plaza businesses, about Freedom Expresso and Mulligan's. You guys don't get the phone calls. These guys don't get the phone calls. Lori gets them. I get them. It was, when Bull and Bear came in, it was a nightmare. It was not good. We had to change signs and we had to do this. When Avicoli's and Pascal's was open, we had issues. We tore down a building and put in 18 spots. We tried to expand our parking.
Yep.
We understand that there's some give and take, but we're running out of, in that area, give and take, because we don't own the parking lot behind Mulligan's. We have a lease option and we take care of it and maintain it, but we don't own that parking lot. We have the park there that's very busy. So I think you're showing us other alternative areas of parking that would help, but the reality of what you're saying, and I don't disagree, I don't ever disagree with engineers and what they come up with, because I believe in the numbers and the studies. But the reality of it is, it hasn't worked out. It just doesn't seem to what you say. And Dennis is right. I think if they pull in and there's no place, are you including employees?
Yep.
100 seats plus, a restaurant. How many?
Employees would be part of the parking demand studies that have been done.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, but I look at a restaurant with 100 seats, and that's 15 employees. So there's 115 people.
Yeah, these parking studies that I reviewed
Right.
are physical parking studies of establishments.
Right.
So that would include, everybody that's working there, everybody that's going there, it's an operating restaurant.
Okay.
So I have a couple of comments.
And we can compare them to some of those. you know, I throw out avocados, but, and not to bemoan, because I have no problem getting into a parking spot or going in there, none whatsoever. But what I'm saying is this is not even close to how few spaces that they have readily available to them. This is so much more.
Right. But that restaurant also isn't 100 seats.
It's, you know, it's probably close to the size of this. It probably is.
My
Just have to
questions
think
or
it's
comments
fair.
are, so if I'm renting, I'm a tenant and I'm renting an apartment there, and I come home 1 month out of the year and I have no parking, and I have to park off that site for a period of time till I can go back out and move my car, and you can only assume that if it's a month a year I can't park there, it could be a month in the winter time when it's crappy to walk around. I think that's going to be a problem for the tenant, and they're going to demand on-site parking and reserved parking on that site. They don't have a choice to drive out and go to another restaurant to eat, or to another hair salon, or another bank, or whatever the business is that's in there to buy a cup of coffee. So I think you really have to consider that in who has the, you know, the parking abilities and who's going to need and want to park there. And if they're inconvenienced a month a year, you know they're going to go to their, you know, who they're renting from, and they're going to have problems, and they're going to have to deal with those problems. The other factor is, and it's fine for off-site types of parking to take care of the overflow, but the majority of that off-site parking is across Genesee Street. If we change the parking coming out of Limestone Plaza, like we've talked about, there will be parking over there for people. But now you have to cross at a very busy intersection with a traffic light, and I know there's a crosswalk, but not everybody uses crosswalks because they want to be there in a hurry. And so now you have people crossing Genesee Street to come to this site. There's limited parking under the bridge, and they could walk up there and walk under the bridge on the sidewalk that's there to get to this site. I understand that. But the people that live here in the village, I would be willing to bet, are not aware of all those parking places to begin with. And you're going to have people coming to patronize that restaurant from lots of places outside of this village who are not going to know where any of that off-site parking is out of there. So I really have some concerns about following the 85th percentile when we're right tight to that exact number in what you're telling me. So I think we got to look at that really hard, because I know where to go and park if I live here. But some people that live here probably don't know exactly where they can park or can't park, and definitely people coming in here from out of town because they want to try the new restaurant. And part of the problem perhaps with Bull and Bear is like any other new place, it doesn't matter whether it's a familiar place that you've been to Bull and Bear in another location, but they're here, they renovated an old building, and everybody wants to come and see what they did and come and try out the restaurant and stuff like that. So initially there could be more problems than long-term, but I think long-term we have to look at what we're offering people and the satisfaction they're going to get from the ability of the site to house the people that they want to rent to and the businesses that they want customers to come to. So I still have some concerns about being so tight to that number.
And those concerns end up being back to the codes office or my office, and that's the issue that I keep having. Now, Bull and Bear has solved itself. We've all worked through it. Avocolis, Pascal's, we've worked through it. But this one is a little bit, it's bigger, and so that it just concerns me that we had avenues. We kind of told people do this, do this, do this, and it worked its way through. There's less safe options. In Limestone Plaza, you can go into 2 or 3 different areas, and you have a little bit of a walk, but they're safe areas. Up in the village here, you have side streets and you have other areas, but you have a safe walk. Down there, if you go across the street, you're in Limestone Plaza, and then you've got to walk across Route 5. So I think that alternative parking is going to be very important to show us, but I think you also got to look at, I think if Matt doesn't agree, I think we can get through the 9 by 18 and with the 24, I think we could get through that. And Dennis is right, 40%. I think everybody's pretty on page that parking's our concern.
Sure, we'll give you a better scenario, and we'll identify other options in the area too, as for make those better.
Can you go back to that last page again? I have two more questions. One is, how many spaces are you gonna lose with snow, when you have to pile up the snow? And also, where are you gonna put all the dumpsters for the different
So we get
businesses?
two dumpster locations here.
Okay,
These are,
You can't see it, I guess.
sorry.
so you got businesses and the apartments, they all share?
One of these would be probably allocated specifically for the apartments. The other ones would be for businesses.
Okay, and then, so, snow, how many spaces are you gonna lose seasonally with
Well,
snow?
with snow and like anything that you're gonna have in a village setting, you're gonna stockpile it, and if it gets to be a problem, you have to load it up and haul it off-site, which is done all the time. So I mean, that's, you know, that's something they're gonna have to do. I mean, their tenants are gonna dictate to make sure that happens if something else.
So at the cost of the people who own the apartments, they have to do that?
At the cost of the developer. Whoever, the person
they
who owns the
do.
apartments is gonna own the whole building. So it's gonna be managed by one entity, not a bunch of separate entities.
You'll build it in.
You're, yeah, assuming they do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the problem with coming across Route 5 is that you can't just come straight across. You have to cross and then cross again. Your sidewalks, unless you can.
Unless you go underneath, which a lot of
Unless you
people don't know,
underneath, yeah.
which is
Yeah, we used to
why
do
when
that
we
too.
redid the bridge back in the 90s, we put that avenue there so people could safely get it underneath Route 5. So, and Mike's right, a lot of people don't know it's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just, you're so tight, and you're being creative, and I appreciate that.
Well-
I'm just, it's like you're on the number.
And I'm gonna be frank with you, my recommendation to them is that they designate 30 spots for the apartments. And then the rest of them are gonna, you know, be for, you know, for the businesses. But even at that, you're at 91 spaces for, you know, basically, you know, a restaurant or, you know, restaurant operating full bore or a restaurant operating at, you know, for lunch, which is minimal compared to dinner. And then you've got, you know, say a bank and a hair salon or whatever else goes in there. That's still a significant number of spaces.
I don't think lunchtime is your issue with the restaurant, because if you talk to a lot of restaurants around here, lunch is not,
It's minimal.
from, you know, Papagayos to, you know, Avicoli's to others, lunch is just not good.
That'd be happy hour time on, because, you know, you hear people that go to different places for that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one trend you're gonna start seeing is, I mean, I literally, today was talking to one of my employees, and he was leaving, and they're turning in one of their leased vehicles, because his wife just got noticed that, last week, that they're not going back to the office anytime in the near future. So she's gonna be working from home, so he's like, forget it, we don't need 2 cars, you know, and, you know, I mean, yeah, hopefully, because I got offices I gotta rent.
I live in that space, there, the data is not.
No, but you could see it in the morning, like before, at 7:30 in the morning, it was
Oh,
backed
now.
up.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, long term.
but if you go by our study,
It's picked up
our
a little
study
bit now.
tells, the study that we had done by SMTC does say a lot. It builds during the day. But what we've seen is that morning is pretty much not as bad as it used to be. But it
Rush
builds
hour's
during
like
the day.
9, 10 in the morning now, it seems like.
I've seen it in my traffic studies
Yes.
across the board.
Yeah.
Morning peak hour is generally 20 to 40% lower than it was a year ago,
Yeah.
before COVID. The evening peak hour is generally in the 10 to 15% lower, because you still have people are going out, but that morning is primarily commuter traffic, and it's dropped way off.
For the short term, give it a year.
Yeah, the expectation is that it's gonna rebound, but I don't know if it's gonna rebound all the way back. I think we're gonna have to probably run 90% when it's all said and done. Because there are certain entities that are moving toward working from home.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law, their office, Source Bank in New York, they moved out to Riscony, and she's been told she's gonna be working from home as long as she wants.
So the next step is we will start the secret process. We will table this to the next meeting, and then we will start reviewing the secret process again. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. So we'll take a 5-minute recess while we bring up this solar community option.
What I was trying to tell you, this was all in mine. She
You want me
said
to go get
all
it?
this stuff.
She what?
She sent
Oh, is he in his car?
They're
all
paying
the
and
things
they're
that you were writing down. She sent them.
Sent them in
They're gonna.
our
they're-
email.
Yeah.
these,
I mean, I hate social media, but all this was
Going through, like everything,
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing short term.
I saw
We're also
stuff in
seeing
my
reductions in there.
email
was all
too.
there.
Yeah, I saw things in my email,
So
but I
that's
didn't
gonna
print
go
it.
for a little while.
I thought you meant it was in our mailbox.
No, no, it was
I know a
central.
lot of companies.
No, I don't, I typically don't
Especially
print
down
it off
south.
myself.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of those weird,
Thanks, man.
I think you're right.
Have a good one.
They're gonna go, okay, only 90% wanna come back.
We've got all this stuff sent to us.
We don't. I know there's.
Oh, the letters and stuff.
Sharon sent us all this stuff. From Matt, yes.
Yeah. I didn't, I have it.
Well, there was five or six, different things.
You know, collaboration is just not there, you know? You still like getting vaccine, you get the fuck back in the office.
I've been home for 16 years, it's just,
See?
my role doesn't need it, I'm not collaborating like that, I'm not with your customers.
That's the power.
I didn't get that.
I didn't get it in an email, I sent it up here. I didn't get it either in the email.
I get the ones that went, well, can I
Yes,
do everything for Friday?
Yes, that's all.
Wells Fargo did a study, and they're like 22% reduction in productivity of that. Wow. That's the same, careful, they're gonna go, we can have our own, come back, we can increase our workforce, and get the same productivity we were getting during COVID.
Yeah, no,
I wasn't questioning your numbers, question, it's just, it's such a drop that it makes answering for, hey, what's the price of your home, I have to live here, we have to justify that, because our residents are screwing us. They always say with some conviction, the reasons why it's okay, and I'm not totally there, but I understand you guys are coming flat.
Yeah, and I give it to him.
This isn't what I meant when we wanted to get together in person. I didn't want to see you for 2 hours. Okay. Okay.
Your idea.
Yeah. Well, it's better than being all that. Well, watching you.
But there's parking spots, you know.
But the overall problem for the site's fine.
But the number of spaces. You know, I think, you're right.
You know, no, it's just it's over 40%, so.
Oh, and I certainly understand the concern,
But-
we are right on the numbers.
Chain rises. And,
Well, the other way around it, I got another solution. You can get more spaces in if you went and said, small cars only. and larger cars. They do that in other places,
I
right?
think you would, but I think it's like if you were.
You can
Yeah,
get
it says,
shopping center,
it's
you
because
get a
when we do the closure
you
session
get a-
here on Wednesdays, you don't want all the people in.
You might get
a couple.
in and
I
out.
get a couple here.
Another 15 to 20 minutes.
You're okay,
You know,
Thank you for all your help.
Sure, no problem.
my wife's got a car that would fit in there.
Well, the other question I was thinking about is, you know, if he is committed to a bank.
And this
not
is, if you need.
the
and then the
cafe,
cords, right?
That's the technical.
Dennis will help you. Which one is, where's your laptop, just so I can see it?
Banks are not, they got down at the village center now. Village center, they got.
That's something you might have to really think
Hey, Dennis,
about.
can you help us with this?
That would give you some factor of safety right there.
HDMI.
Why don't you have him come up a little?
Was he a good teacher?
Man's from engineering school, I was a decent teacher at least.
That was the other thing. I'm
Yeah, he
like,
didn't
if
say
he
it
learned
was-
math from who I think he learned math from, I'm not sure I should even be listening.
The good news is he was 12th grade math, my algebra and trig was all before him.
Oh, right.
He didn't sabotage me too bad.
My son's going to NC State. He's reading the curriculum to me. I got to put it on mark.
What's that?
I was talking to my one son. He's
You had it?
about taking.
How long ago?
You realize I took out 1, 2, 3 differential equations, advanced statistics, it's like, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah,
end of the week, December. I was
Calc 6.
very fortunate. I had that, but I didn't have it so bad. But it took me about
Yeah,
2
that's
weeks
beyond me.
to just feel like normal again. After I was cleared,
Some of that stuff.
and
just
then
makes you
I just started working out a month ago, and it's been a struggle.
Peppermint?
I go, you
It's been a real struggle. But I'm glad I'm back. I'm doing it, and I'm getting better every day. But
But I already go to school 6 hours a day. Plus.
yeah.
Are these white ones peppermint?
I don't know. It is, it's just kind of. Which I was like,
Cinnamon in there.
Definitely don't want
Mike,
spearmint.
Mike,
you can't go on Village.
what about that one?
Spearmint.
No, no, you can't.
It's not like.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
I have an upset stomach. I need.
God bless them. God bless all you guys.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next is the solar community option presentation. Sam Doubleday is with Omni Renewables. Sam, myself and Lori met last week, and I thought this was an important presentation. Sam is a village resident as well, so I thought it'd be nice if Sam was here to present this.
I've never tried it.
We're going to turn this down a little bit, just to see if we can see a little better.
I've waited a long time to contact the trustees, even though we've been doing this for quite a while. And my home is with Nikki Shrimpton. She's a longtime resident. 3 kids went through the school district. I'm in the very far northeast corner by Bishop's Brook, so downhill. So I am Sam Doubleday. Our company's called Omni Renewables, and we have morphed out of Blue Rock Solar, which was a division of the energy services company in downtown called Blue Rock Energy, which is now defunct. So, here we go. The name of the program that we represent on behalf of New York State is called Community Distributed Generation. This was the formal name of the program that was passed by the Public Service Commission or introduced by the Public Service Commission in July of 2015. So I use the acronym CDG, but what it's about is generating new electricity in your community and distributing it right in your community. Usually the flow of electricity comes from Northwest, Niagara Falls, through Marcy, and then downstate. It's also known by a name called Community Solar. But if you think of it this way, this is the title of the book. The first chapter is called Community Solar. I'm proud to be in the village of Fayetteville, and you're very progressive. It's just common sense stuff. You've been a part of climate smart community, and you've done these 4 things in the past. By the way, I think climate smart community is a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation program. You might want to check on that, but talking to Chris Carrot today. The program that is now also on the books is called CEC, Clean Energy Communities, which we'll get into. But, so you folks have done this in the past, thanks to great leadership. You've created, way back in 14, Climate Action Plan. It's a 42-page document. It's an incredible document. And this is, again, who we are. We're based in Syracuse. We service all of upstate New York. We're focusing our attention just in the National Grid electric footprint, service footprint. We do not build community solar farms. Our parent company out of Boston called Omni Navitas develops land that then becomes solar farms. They hold the largest project portfolio of land under initial contract for these projects, if you will, these CDG projects. We interact with consumers like I'm doing tonight. Residential, can be commercial like Walmart, municipal and also nonprofit, churches, YMCA's. We also interact with our utility company, in this case National Grid, government agencies such as the Public Service Commission and NYSERDA, for example. So our little team does that here in Syracuse. So this is what it is. It's a New York State energy program created by the Public Service Commission. Actually, the order came out July 17th, 2015, and it checks a box on a much bigger program here in New York State. We want our utility companies to buy electricity made within our borders, and the easiest way to do that is have it be green because it costs less, it costs the cheapest, I should say. And in doing this whole process, we're going to make our utility grid more resilient. We're upgrading substations as the private sector. We're going to have almost in every county small regional generation facilities called community solar farms. So also creates jobs, which I'm a recipient of. And for example, checks boxes for future and present laws. Well, the main law that came out at the end of 2019, like at midnight, was the CLCPA, Climate Leadership Community Protection Act, and it sets a pathway for New York State to meet several milestones about every 10 years as far as moving to an electric economy, getting rid of generation sites that are run on oil especially and coal especially. So community solar is one part of that bigger goal. Brings cheap green electricity to the masses. This is exactly the truth because pricing's come down in the technology of solar generation. Solar generation, you set it south, there's no moving parts, and the fuel is free. It's opposite what Billy Facillo says is the worst investment in the world, automobiles. And now, we'll talk about this. Our little world of CDG is a component of a new program. NYSERDA's PON 3298 came out, revised in January, and this piggybacks on what I said you folks were already involved with as a village, clean cities. This is clean energy communities, and you can actually get a double windfall with my company and our program, and then it is now inside this PON, and you can get points for becoming, whether my company or another company, involved in this program, and points lead to grant money. And this is it, just came out, as I said, revised this past January. And here's clean energy upgrades when you sign up for CDG with vendors like myself, and a community campaign when, and I have some material to leave with you tonight, when you market the fact that you're on this situation, which we'll discuss how it relates to your utility bills, but then when you market it to the village residents, you get points for doing that. Points lead to grant money. Oops. So this is how it works. CDG, Community Distributed Generation. We're generating in your community, and it's going to stay there. And the vehicle for this new electricity generation is community solar farms. Flows up under the grid, and the idea is it's going to be more of a retail, not a wholesale. It's not going to New York City. It's going to stay here, and we're all going to get the ability to use it in the form of bill credits. You're not buying anything. You're raising your hand. You're signing a subscription agreement, and you become a subscriber to a CDG project, and you're placed on a community solar farm. Credits appear on the utility bill as a line item. That was never the case. We started in NYSEG under Blue Rock Solar, and a second bill would appear. And the Public Service Commission said at our request, that's not very consumer friendly. So they asked all the utility companies, or they told them, you're going to have now these credits appear as a line item under the delivery section of your utility bill. It's really, really nice. We're fortunate as a company to offer that. Some companies who have large personnel pools who are used to doing billing will still do the billing and create a second bill for you. But this is the picture speaks 1,000 words, generated from community solar farms, goes up onto the grid. You sign up, residential, commercial, et cetera, and you receive bill credits. And what it essentially means from a high level is it's free money. You get this discount that goes against what you pay National Grid for electricity supply and delivery. And it's a free program.
You said that very fast. Supply and delivery?
Supply, delivery, and also
And delivery.
your meter fee, right.
Okay.
As I said, my team, and I'm not the leader, but I am the second oldest, started out of Blue Rock Solar, which was part of Blue Rock Energy. This in Millport, which is outside of Watkins, again, this is what a community solar farm looks like. First one in the state. You subscribe to this, and this is in NYSEG. We owned it. Right now, the Green Bank owns it, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. This is the first farm in Watkins Glen. I'm sorry, Ithaca in Tompkins County. The interesting thing about this is about 3 times the size of the earlier one. We have a natural gas pipeline going right through here, and over here we have the now defunct coal power plant. I think it's called the Milligan Station. Milligan Station? So that's a nice picture. But every 2 panels we could check the health of the system. And there's 6,800 panels. But that's what a community solar farm looks like. This was very marginal land. It wasn't great farmland. It was shale, rock, 3 inches underneath the surface. And then before Blue Rock Solar became Omni Renewables, this is in Grand Island. So you take the 190, you go up to Niagara Falls, and you take the 190, you come down to Buffalo. Again, marginal land, about the same size as the Ithaca one. That's in National Grid. Largest Presbyterian church in Western New York is subscribed to that, thanks to my work. So I have to leave a hard copy, but this is what we call a cost savings proposal, and I've broken this up in 2 more slides, but let me do that instead of having you read this. This proposal, what we call a cost savings proposal, starts with 15 bills that I collected thanks to Lori's help, and of those 15 meters, let's say 131,000, 132,000 kilowatt hours, that's what we look at going back, your consumption going back past the last 12 months. Now, ultimately what you want to look at is this is what you would get as a village over those 15 meters over the course of the future 12 months. This building, and there's another building that's not included because you have a special supply program. What this tells us is our project, which is up in Otto, New York. You're called a mass market, so if you were to sign up with us for your home, you're also mass market. It's a 1-year subscription. This term is wrong, contract term, but it's really a subscription agreement, and you can get out of this relationship with a 60-day notice. This is what we call the monetary credits. We keep talking about credits. This number is arrived at by the 131,000 times the VEDA rate, 8.2 cents. The VEDA rate, we're getting into the weeds, but that's a statewide number. It fluctuates almost on a daily basis. And then by law, you get 10% of this figure as a discount. It's just that simple. It's not a lot of money, but it's free money, and we all pay into this program with the system benefits charge on our bills. This is the second half of the proposal. As you see here, that there's no additional invoice from us. I invented this in 2018. We call it the Green Energy Partnership Program. This is where I talked about the double windfall from that NYSERDA program. We'll give you a one-time signing bonus, which is based on that 131,000 kilowatt hours. And you help us market it on your website, which will drive them to our website and our intake form. And for every person that signs up, we're going to give them a $50 Visa e-gift card. And for every person that signs up, we're going to donate to you, the village, $25.
The only thing that we talked about was we had talked about the tree commission would be a perfect way to give back to the environment. You know, having $25, I don't know what the trees cost us, I think they're 30 something. So, you know, for every two we could plant another tree in our community, and
Yeah.
we're a Tree City USA, so I think it would be important for the money that we get to go towards the tree commission.
We do this because you're helping us market this program to village residents. It really started out of the faith community. Congregations are usually pretty tight relative to their parish, synagogue, mosque, and usually if a church signs up, a lot of the parish members would go with them as well. So we call it the Green Energy Partnership Program. All the companies typically have something similar to this that we compete with. And here's, for example, some other amounts. Again, you were at a little bit, maybe $1,200 or $1,100, if you will. This is the end, my last slide. Whoops. I'll just give you some idea on what some other municipalities. We signed up the town of Edwards, they're with us. About $1,200, that's up on Tug Hill. Town of Lafayette, we were gonna move forward, but then Danny Fitzpatrick has a job down in Virginia, so they're looking for a new supervisor. Town of Manlius, this represents their big demand meters, so combined, about $3,200 a year that they would get. Village of Pulaski, I'm giving a presentation to the sewer board. This is a big sewer meter, and the sewer board is a different animal than the Board of Trustees as far as approval of a program like this, but they're looking at about $3,600. City of Oswego, $41,000 for this, if they signed up for this program, as what we call free money in the form of bill credits. Approached City of Syracuse some time ago, and they said we're going to do something on our own. So, but that is called CDG, Community Distributed Generation, in a nutshell. And I'll open up for any questions. I know I spoke fast, but I know you've got a long night, so I don't want to.
I've heard this presentation, so any trustees have any questions?
Yeah, I'm afraid that the beginning, did graze really fast. So what is the village's investment
One-year subscription agreement.
A subscription meaning what?
I have it with me, a hard copy. It's a 2-page disclosure form, which is created by the Public Service Commission, and then an 8-page subscription agreement that lays everything out.
Is it a cost?
No, there's no cost.
The subscription is nothing more than...
We all pay into this under the System Benefits Charge, the SPC charge on all our bills. Your bill's here, my bill at home, your bill at home. And that goes into a big pool of money in Albany called the Public Service Commission and NYSERDA for the most part, since 1975. That's when NYSERDA was formed. The SBC charge on our bills, I think, from 93 or 96. But there is no fee to participate in this program. And I usually lead by saying, you're going to tell me this sounds too good to be true. Well, it is true, and it's very good.
So the communities are getting money and savings back for participating in it.
That's right. And you can check off some of your boxes relative to other programs in the Clean Energy Communities program that you're already involved in, or I should say the Clean Cities program. That transfers over. I know you talked to Amanda. Amanda told me you talked to her recently. We're very fortunate in New York State to have Chris Carrick and Amanda Mazzoli, Central New York Regional Planning and Development Authority, who is NYSERDA's subcontractor to bring to municipalities these clean programs, and now we're a part of it as a CDG vendor.
Both of them have been very helpful with the car charging stations and other programs that we've done in the village, and Lori deals with them on a regular basis, and there is no cost and there is a lot of benefit. You know, now $1,000 isn't a huge savings, but it's a savings. But other residents that have higher demand meters or commercial properties, the money's there for them to save. Why not give them the opportunity? And I think it's worthwhile.
Sure.
And it is, he keeps bringing it up, grants. It's a point. It's another thing that we can do to show when we do a project or we do something that we have signed on and that we give our residents the option. And then we're giving the money back to the tree commission. We're not.
And so you know, there are other vendors out there. Our advantage, other than having, you know, a local guy here to make sure it's done right, is this consolidated bill thing where these credits show, and I have an example, I didn't include it in here, I could pack this thing with slides. But having a national grid bill and not having to pay write a second check to a vendor each month, plus it's a little wonky, sometimes they come late, but having it right on your national grid bill with a line item, CDG credit, again, it's a discount in parentheses, that is so nice, because for those first 3 solar farms in NYSEG and Grand Island, we billed people, and people are always calling us, I don't see my discount. Well, we've chosen to opt into the easy route for our consumers. I know you don't, it's tough to
So how do you get people to sign up?
We kind of are limited. There are competitors of ours with a lot of money. And so we don't do, you all get mailings at home from Arcadia and Nexstamp, Common Energy. We don't have that kind of money at this point to do the mailings, so we're B2B people for the most part. That's why I'm focusing on municipalities, especially with this Clean Energy Communities program. Now that we're in it, you saw the 2 items where you can get points. It's folks like yourself are basically calling us and saying, come give us a presentation on this.
We've had other groups done in the past.
Well, we did the Javier with, that was a different program.
Community choice aggregation.
That was, and they went through and did a study and found out that there was no savings. So that was the last program. We still have that on the books if somebody comes back to us and wants to try that again. But there was no savings. So they went out to the market and priced it out.
Well, look at me, I voted against that.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But that program didn't, we did all the work that we had to do, and we passed all the laws, and then the step was to go out, and if there was savings to be had, then they would go to the next step. When they went and did the market analysis and got the bids back, there was no savings. And that was Manlius, Fayetteville, Manoa going in together.
That's a component of, your clean energy community. That's different than us. Although that CCA is gonna have a CDG component. For 4 points towards
This
grant.
isn't voting on whether or not we're bringing the solar energy into our community.
No,
It is
it's
just,
giving an option to go use Omni. So I would say that I would request that the Board of Trustees make an authorization that the mayor enter a signed agreement with approval of council to review the Omni proposal and to see if it would work for our residents and work for the village.
I'd like to read.
No,
So what's that?
So we are gonna read it? Yeah.
Free money part, because there is no such thing as free money.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
thinking.
don't understand, if we're paying into it on one side and you're saying this is a way to get it back, well, that's great, but
So
I mean,
it's
still
for
not
us.
free money.
What's in it for you, or?
The people who own these projects, National Grid buys the electricity from them.
At what rate?
I don't know. But the Vita rate's like 8 cents, and it's cheaper than that. I don't know, that's not my world. And usually ironically, the people that are really pushing this forward for us in America, and there's 19 states that have legislation, is Wall Street. You don't get $9, $10, $200 million from KeyBank and M&T. You get it from the Blackstone Group, you get it from family offices like the Walmarts, you get it from other Wall Street people. And what they get out of it is a 5-year federal IRS investment tax credit, which is now, I think, at 24%. It came down from 30. So people lend developers like us $200 million for a portfolio of 14 projects that we've already signed, gone through planning board, across different counties, villages, towns. We build them, and then it flips to the financial owner, tax equity. They take over 5 years that 24% investment tax credit, because they pay a lot of taxes, and it flips it back to us as the owner. That's kind of how the mechanics are. They're very difficult, a lot harder to do than your pending development down here. But so maybe free money isn't the correct thing. It's
So can I just ask to clarify, is my understanding then that if the village signs a agreement with you for a year, we're gonna save $1,100, say, correct?
estimated, yeah, because it
Estimated.
happens every month at each meter through National Grid. A thing called the Vita calculator, which involves a value stack, which is a bunch of numbers.
Okay, then, if I understand what you're telling me, Once we sign that agreement with you, that opens up the opportunity for people within the village to access the ability to sign up for a program with you.
If you choose to accept our opportunity or our Green Energy Partnership Program, help us market it. But I'm already signed up on a project, of course, one of our projects. A lot of people have been getting mailers in this
Right.
village, in this town, in this
Well,
county.
I'm never like sold on signing up for stuff. In fact, when people call
Yeah.
daily about wanting you to change your energy bill and get your energy bill out and look at this and that on it, I usually argue with them for 20 minutes and then they hang up
So-
on me. Because really it's the delivery and some of the other costs
So
which you're gonna save
99%
on.
of that is supplies, or
Right.
third-party ESCOs that I,
Right.
yeah, so it's,
Okay, so if we agree to market it, marketing it for you means we put a link on our website to your website, is that correct?
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less, doesn't cost
Go
us
to-
a penny, doesn't cost the village a penny, right?
you can go
So
to the
far.
town of Boston right now, yep.
Okay,
sure.
next, if somebody wants to sign up for it, they do that of their own free will. There's absolutely no
That's right.
obligation for them to do that because we've signed an agreement or entered into a
That's right,
contract
and on
with
your
you.
website, you're gonna give a promo code.
And
Like
if,
Tree Fund, Fayetteville.
Okay.
And they're gonna put the promo code in our intake form, and we know that they're part of the Village of Fayetteville. And they then get the benefit, you get the benefit.
okay, so now I understand that they can sign into it. I also understand that if they give you 60 days notice, they can sign out of it.
They're gonna have the same subscription agreement that's on his desk.
Okay.
Same of your 50
No, it's fine,
views.
just tell them the bottom line, is all I'm saying. Because Dennis had a problem the last time somebody talked to us about this stuff, and I don't really see a negative side to anybody to have the ability to sign into it if they want to. And if they don't want to, nothing that we're doing as a village is requiring them to, or forcing them to do
There's no
anything like
political
that.
risk.
Right.
Well, it's not about
I'm
politics.
not
it's about-
talking
No,
about
it's not
politics, I'm talking
politics.
about people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the
When we're
residents.
reviewing this, can you double check to make sure that nothing in this thing that he's signing precludes us from,
Well, he's
also
not gonna
putting
sign
a
it till Ted reads
competitor
it,
of
he
his
doesn't
on the
have to
website?
read it
Yeah,
tonight.
you're not gonna sign it tonight.
I'm not signing anything.
I know you're not, but I'm saying, let's say somebody else comes along, you know, the next Omni comes along and says, hey, we can do the same thing, we would like to be on your website too. Can we do that? Personally, I don't feel comfortable, I don't have a problem necessarily linking to our website as long as we're not endorsing it. I don't think it's up to us to endorse any commercial.
Well, like
No,
any,
just like I wouldn't endorse a particular restaurant, or I wouldn't endorse any private business. I don't think that's our
Our
role.
Green Energy
But
Partnership-
to be able to say, hey, look, this is available to you, just so you know, they gave a presentation, contact them if you're interested, that's different. But I don't want to endorse it, and I don't want to preclude us if another vendor comes along, and if they would do the same thing, they certainly, but then we become a clearinghouse for, how many companies are we gonna put on our website and links, And,
That was
and believe
good.
me, I'm totally not against solar power at all. It's just the arrangement I'm not totally comfortable with. And I'm certainly not comfortable with us receiving money for endorsing it and then passing it or having customers do that. There's something weird about that arrangement, in my opinion.
That was gonna be my next question, is that a company will say, we will not use your number for blah, 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 but they can turn over or sell your information to the next guy and then they use your information.
Well, I'll tell you, the Green Energy Partnership Program is at your discretion, and, New York State's well aware of these programs because they put it right in the NYSERDA program called Community, or Clean Energy Communities. It's, if you get 10 people signed up, community campaign, if you sign up for this program under Clean Energy Upgrades, whether me or any other vendor, and then you promote it on your website that you're doing this, and you get 10 people to sign up to that same vendor, they're gonna give you points, which leads to grant money.
But that's us endorsing, it sounds like.
And don't do it. Do you wanna save
That
money?
might be an option.
Yeah. I also, we're still gonna reach out to Chris and to Amanda, but I gotta be honest, they have steered us the right way, and we're trying to get to the next level on our Clean Communities program. We're not getting there, and this is just an avenue to help us get there. And I understand your reservations, and I don't disagree, but I also think you gotta give the faith.
Oh, I'm being open-minded
I
about it.
think the
I'm
faith
listening.
the public has to have, we have to have some faith in the public that, you know what, they can choose it or they cannot choose it. The
Yeah,
money's going to
absolutely.
the tree commission, the money's not going to us, let's be clear. The money, if we get $25, it's gonna go to our tree commission, and it's gonna do some good. So we're not benefiting, the public is benefiting from this. They're gonna get cheaper rates if we
Maybe.
go with it, and,
Well, it's not a rate,
or a
we're getting a bill discount.
bill discount.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I gotta use the right, you have so many acronyms, it gets confusing sometimes. But they're gonna save on that, on their bill, and we have an opportunity to help with our green energy and also help our community with the trees.
Yeah,
So,
I have no problem
but
with us
as long
looking
as
into it.
we'll talk to Ted, we'll review it with our attorney, and then we'll talk with Chris and Amanda, and Lori talks to them all the time, because we're working on this weekly, and see what happens.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's other vendors out there, so I encourage
But no
you-
one's approached us, so that's why.
Yeah, no, I get it, but
I-
they might.
Yeah.
And then we're duty bound, but to listen to them, and I think we have to be very careful about making sure we're not endorsing
But if
a
we've signed on with
specific
one, do we?
person.
is
We'll have
that-
to ask Ted.
Then we have.
We'll
That's
review
my
that.
opinion.
Yeah, okay.
60 days.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good job.
Pam Bender, sorry it took so long.
Okay.
Lori, we are gonna have to extend the time, so I apologize, we have a, I'm excited because it's a long agenda, but I know that excitement doesn't happen with everybody. Have a good night, Sam.
Thank you.
First off, I wanted to know
Free
if
money.
you all received some of the information that I researched and was able to find that was pretty exciting, to do with the Ledger Canal and the years that, the year that they started building and the ceremony where they declared it, will ever be called Ledger Canal forever and ever. Those aren't quite the exact words, but anyways. And I didn't know if you had any questions on anything that you did receive, before I went forward.
Well, it's great info. It's
Yeah,
really
I know
neat.
a
I
lot
would have
of
loved to
them.
seen it in its heyday. I wondered, are there pictures?
I have a couple pictures of a couple of different mills. It seems like there's not that many pictures of that type of business, but, which is obviously what was the whole part of the Ledger
Yeah.
Canal being built in the first place. There are pictures of the canal itself, but other than that, I haven't really found anything else at this point.
Did you find out what happened to the application that was done, but we don't know if it was put in or what happened to
I
it?
have no idea about that. That
Okay.
was a while ago, and I really wasn't aware of it, and it might have been more for the houses that were along it or something. That's what I think someone told me. I was probably that or whatever.
Have you had a chance to review it, or
I
no?
haven't reviewed the whole
Okay.
thing, no. So I don't know what happened with that.
If you see a large box by Karen in the, it's all about the Ledger
Yeah,
Canal.
yes.
So, you know, Karen's been going through it
Really
with
neat stuff.
Pam's help, and they've been reviewing things, and we found out that the whole application was done, and I don't know what year it was done, 19, was it
Was it 84,
Yeah,
80, something like
85?
that, in the 80s, but we don't know if it went
84.
in, we don't know what
Application
happened.
for what?
I don't think
For
it
what
was
we're gonna talk about
actually,
tonight.
Submitted, but I could be wrong. I don't
Right.
know, but,
It was
having
all
said
surveyed
that,
then, that's
it
what I'm saying.
probably would be done a little differently in the sense of maybe more of the technical, area, the engineering area of it. That's the biggest on the National Register. That is, if you want me to start there. The National, again, I'm just reading what I have here. The National Register program is entirely separate from our local preservation. If the canal was listed, the village could also designate it as a local landmark, but you don't have to. If it's not a local landmark, then there is no commission review. I know that, when we were talking back a year ago, we told you, Mark, that we're interested in putting it on the historic American engineer record, which we still are, definitely, that there was absolutely no conflicting restrictions, and I have this here too. Documentation on here does not inflict any restrictions on what you can do with this property. It is solely a documentation of property with the recognition of the national significance of the structure. The package will be made available to the public through the hair collection at the Library of Congress and eventually be available online. I got that from Jesse Ravage and a consultant that we've been interviewing. To do with the National Register, it also stated that, to do with, there's laws, there's a federal law 106, which I guess the lawyer here wouldn't know what that was. That applies even if it's not on the National Register. There are no like additional laws that would restrict you whatsoever if it's on the National Register.
I was just concerned, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
If it got put on this, could we do like we go in now and we take care of the beaver dams and we take care of the leaks and we do the
Yeah.
normal maintenance and we have the clay liners that we've been doing up on Old Dyke Way and we've been, we've had, we're cutting the grass over on 92 and we're making sure that we're keeping it clean and we put the things in by Beard. We do a lot of little things. And I wanted to make sure that whatever we did didn't impede us from being able to do those things that keep the water flowing, that keep us being able to, use the pond and have the other things. The Boy Scouts, there's an Eagle Scout right now that's considering going in and pulling debris and cleaning it up. So things like that. Or if we finally get ownership of that one section that we don't own, will it impede us from doing things that we can do as a DPW? So she's answered my question because I just don't want to have
So
any.
it doesn't impede us in any way.
So what you read was, there's no conditions of anybody who's adjoining, whose property adjoins. There's no conditions on that.
Maybe, buddying up to it, no, there's none. The only little caveat here is, I understand the village owns how much of this?
We own all of it except one section, and this is to my knowledge, and Lori can tell me if I'm wrong, in the behind the Marillac Apartments. We have been, when we did the McIntyre paper project, or that, when they started doing that, we got ownership of that
Oh, you did?
parcel,
Okay,
yes.
so a section along the Marillac apartment,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Just that one block?
Just that one, it's in pretty bad shape, but it's just that one block. And we've had the whole
Yeah.
surveyed, we had that done too,
Okay, so the Marillac apartment owner owns that part?
yes.
Okay. When I talked to James Spinelli, at Albany, SHPO, he said that if there are any private, homeowner or whatever, that they have to sign off, on something like this.
Okay.
If it wasn't like that, there wouldn't be any problem, but,
Okay.
and hopefully that won't be a problem.
I don't think that'll be an
And
issue.
it sounds like he happens to be right where they first broke ground, is right at the corner of
Exactly,
Chapel.
it is. It was
Which
right
would be
there.
unfortunate if he said no, the owner, because
I
that would be a
know.
cool landmark, right?
I know, I just recently found that, and I just was, oh my goodness, that's why I wrote up that article. I thought you could all just picture yourself there on that day. It had to have been an amazing, this is an amazing, intricate, difficult engineering feat. And they were able to get all sorts of professional people and monies together and finally did it. And that is actually why Fayetteville prospered the way they did. Sure, the Erie Canal was down there, but all the mills, there were so many different mills along there. So all the business people and all the community just benefited so much from that. The other thing too, is it's on the National Register, it does open up the possibility of future grants to help maintain the integrity. I get very concerned about, the things that happen to it, and, we gotta keep it so that the water keeps flowing and it'll be there for generations of people in the future to enjoy. We have, grant applications that if you give us the go-ahead to, start working on, and they have to be submitted by April 2nd, so kind of on a tight timeline.
Mhm.
Anyways.
Can
one
you
is
finish in
the
time?
cer-
Do you have enough time to finish by April 2nd?
Well, I'm hoping, yeah. Certified
Well, I'm
local-
just curious.
No, it's
I
a good
mean,
question.
I know it's hard, I mean, I know it's a lot of
I'm gonna-
work, so.
I'm gonna try, I've been working hard already, and
Yeah.
hopefully other committee members on the commission will be doing the same thing, I would imagine. The Certified Local Government Program has, that's the major grant that I'd like to go after. And past grant awards have ranged from $1,200 to $29,000, with most between $5,000 and $15,000. I don't know how much it'll cost to get a consultant. We have to get a consultant that has an engineering background for this to work, because they have to really get into intricate workings of the whole thing for it to even probably get a chance to be on it. The hair application is, or the grant for that will be easier. I've interviewed one person in particular, and Jessie Ravitch, maybe even, you know who Jessie is, she worked for Promises.
Yeah.
She is willing to write the narrative for it. He also can do it, but Jessie can do it less expensively, because she's already done it.
So what you want us to do is say, yeah, go ahead with the HAER.
Yes, and here are the Historic American Engineering Director, to go ahead and start filling out applications to get grant. And also start working on getting it on the National Register, and that's gonna take a little bit longer, especially when we gotta get permission from the mayoral departments, and who knows, I have no idea. That's probably a longer project.
You were saying that it's the only one in New York, it's one of,
Yeah,
What?
there isn't, I can't find one, anything comparable to the Ledger Canal. It is truly unique, maybe even nationally, for all I know, and especially the fact that it's intact. I mean, the man that I'd like to hire any of these consultants will tell you, the majority of the time they get called in as mitigation. It's like the whole thing isn't even really there, but they're documenting it. This is all there, and this one guy in particular, Bruce, he is so excited. He said, "Oh my gosh, it's there. It's just so wonderful." And to think that we can actually keep the integrity, like I said, on this canal is very exciting.
There's two,
the engineering part.
did you check with Barbara Roulette at all? You did?
Mhm.
And she couldn't remember any of this going through?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did you check with Onondaga County Historic?
No.
Well, phone call to them, they might have a great amount of material there. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they might. I keep finding things and digging into things. There's the Canal Society, was,
Yeah, Barbara Vett was
tour.
involved with them.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they had a great write-up, and it was all connected to, different news clippings that they found. To get back to the grant though, the Certified Local Government, it's probably very similar to when we got the reconnaissance survey, where you have to do in-kind or
Mhm.
cash. The Certified Local Government, wants, contributions of, in-kind, well, cash or in-kind services equaling at least 40% of the total project. Which, if we did it for the reconnaissance survey, I would imagine we're gonna be able to work something out
Mhm.
that way. How that's gonna look, I don't know. Maybe we'd be writing some of the narrative up, I don't know, but that's about it.
Do you have a cost in mind of what it's gonna cost?
I know for the hair nomination, I think it could be as much as $4,500, something like that. And that all will depend upon whether we hire a narrative written or we write it ourselves. But probably more advantageous to us to have a consultant write it up, just to make sure that it really goes through.
And-
Since, none of us are experts at this.
And Pam, is there a cost to the engineer, you said, or the consultant, that, do you know about what it would cost? Is that part of the same process?
Yeah,
Does that include it?
The consultant's fee is like $4,800
Okay.
if he did all of it. He takes photographs, I don't know, you get the negatives, you get the photos. I don't know if I'd be more than happy to email any of that information to you.
So
No,
if we
I guess
said just to be
Mark, are
safe-
we talking about the same month, when you said how much it was the
Well,
cost?
yeah, I
each
just
year?
want, I'm a little confused. Is it two different programs that we're trying to go for?
Well, there, yeah, the HARE, the Historic American Engineering Record is one thing, it's just a documentation at the Library of Congress, anybody can look it up nationally, internationally, whatever.
And that's about $4,500 to apply for that?
Yeah, not to apply, but to actually get it nominated.
Okay,
The consultant's fee would be right around that.
okay. And then the CLG,
Oh, but that's where I'm going for the
Okay.
CLG, yeah, the CLG grant is one that can go for. So-
oh, okay, I got it.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And we just have
Okay.
to chuck in.
Then the
So we'd have to
national-
come up with 40% of that. Let's just
40%
say
of it,
$5,000.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Okay, so the CLG grant would cover the hair nomination.
yes,
Right.
and, yes.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a
Absolutely.
problem. The
Well,
National
then-
Register, I don't know
I don't
until we
know,
actually start doing more homework on
I'm sorry, I got it now. I didn't mean to be dense before.
Yeah, sorry, we got,
But you still
What about
would be hiring somebody to help you
California?
with
Is
the
he got
CLG grant,
anything?
it's about 1,900.
the
Or
narrative.
12.
Oh, the grant,
Or
yeah,
1900.
but not, well, not the grant, well, okay, the grant process, I guess this is a little confusing maybe to me. The consultant we hire writes the narrative, takes the pictures and everything, and submits it to,
There.
here. But the grant process is a grant application that we fill out, asking for money to actually do it and get reimbursed. And so that is what we would do. That's what we did before with Karen and some of us, we wrote up the grant application. It's not that I have it, it's not, it's like 5 pages.
So the grant's gonna be for the, up to 5,000, let's just say, to make it easy.
So then we need to authorize them to, number one, go for the grant, and number two, authorize funding to pay for the work to be done to get the grant
Exactly.
tonight, in order
And I
for
think-
her to have time.
Right, and I think it, Lori could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it should come out of the Parks Commission, Parks Committee, because we don't have a budget line item. We could use the money out of the Parks Committee
For now.
for now and
see
then
where we
transfer.
go
We
with
have,
it.
I think we put $5,000 in there this year. I mean, it's
I have another
technically-
idea where we could come up with that money too, though.
What's that?
Well, we'll talk about it during the budget time.
Okay.
But, I mean,
Well, we need
can,
to say yes.
we
No,
can,
I'm confused. So, okay, so we gotta have, you wanna do the CLG grant, I just wanna make sure. The CLG grant, the APC is going to do, correct? Or you or whomever.
Correct.
With a 5-page thing to get the $5,000 to do the hair.
But we
So-
have to commit to
So right off,
40%.
there's no money to be, we don't have to commit to anything
No,
because
you
if
don't have to
don't get
commit
the
to
But we
grant,
would
you
have to
wouldn't
commit
have
to
to-
paying
We
40% of it,
Yeah.
up to
You would have
40%.
to commit that if we get the application.
Yeah,
like
so-
it's
so
still-
yes.
that-
Or
Yeah.
in
If the
concert,
application
right.
is approved, we
Okay.
can actually move forward.
Yes. Okay.
So, you ready for a motion?
Yeah, I am, thank you.
I would make a motion that we would approve the grant application, and that we would, if we receive that grant, that we are committed to fund our portion of what's necessary for the hair application, if that's.
For the Ledyard Canal.
For the Ledyard Canal.
Moved by Mike,
second.
seconded by Dan. Any discussion?
It's a great idea.
Thank you, Pat.
I
And to
think-
do with the National Register, should at some point come back on that?
Yeah, I think let's get through this so you can get going, and then absolutely, yeah, I think.
Because this would help if I heard it, this would help in that application process for the National Register, right?
It most likely, I can't see it cannot hurt.
Can't hurt it, but I mean-
We have so much work already done on it, yeah.
So I guess the better way to ask the question is that the National Register is not dependent upon this
No.
either, but this would help us probably in that whole
Right,
process.
right.
And some of the stuff we're doing now would probably be utilized in that application
Yes,
also.
exactly. And then eventually, hopefully, if we got on the National Register, you see monies, who knows, coming from wherever.
Right,
You know,
different
we can
grants
get on
available
that.
and stuff, yeah.
Good.
All right, well, thank you.
Cool. All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks,
Very
Pam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great night. Next is the public emergency plan. You all have a copy of it. We have sent it both to our two bargaining units. We've had no comments back from the bargaining units. So we need a motion now to go ahead and approve these plan
So
That was
moved.
it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the plan that Lori and her team spent so much time with? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Village speed limit review. Ted?
So it's pretty much what we talked about at the last meeting. For an area-wide, you're stuck with 30 miles an hour. If you want to reduce it to 25, it's got to be done by a local law where you identify lineal sections of village streets to be 25 miles an hour. Post them as such. For anything that's on a municipal property like a park, the place we're sitting right now, you can make up your own speed limits for how traffic goes through those internally. Obviously, if a street goes by a school, you can reduce it to 50 miles an hour for a certain distance, subject to certain conditions. And then after you're done dealing with the vehicle and traffic law, those first 4 items, the last thing you're left with is speed bumps, which aren't either specifically approved or disallowed under New York state law.
Which, with speed bumps, we've done it by looking at the neighborhood and asking for signatures that way, because the neighbors are the ones that are gonna go over it the most, or the people in
Well,
the
and they
neighborhood.
also
Hey, Mark.
damage the roads too, so you
Right.
gotta watch it.
How much did the, remember when we put the speed humps down on Brookley? How
Yep.
much, do you remember if what the add-in was? Do you,
No, it was part of the project, but everything that everybody told us about them, that they would deteriorate or that they would be a problem for the plows or that blah, blah, we haven't had any.
well, that's what I
of those.
mean.
So
I was gonna say, I
knock on
wonder-
wood, we have not had any of those issues with maintenance on them. And they do, depending on what kind of car it is, I know Pam's down there more than any of us, but it does slow them down.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they're so easy to plow over and everything
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Well, they're not, it's not, I think to the plow, I mean, the car feels like it's going up, but they're pretty gradual.
If you've been on
Yeah, they're
SUNY
nice.
Binghamton's campus, they're all over.
Over the place.
All over
They're
the place on
everywhere.
SUNY Binghamton's campus, and they're concrete.
Yeah.
So you really have to take your time and go over them.
We should ask Pat to see how much a concrete one would cost to install
Yeah.
on Paul Street.
Well, the best
So where are you
ones are
gonna
the
put
ones
it,
that are
Dennis?
scooped.
But then they end up jumping and
Where's it
going
gonna
into
No,
the
they're
park.
scooped, I'm telling you
Where are you
right
gonna
now.
put it on the street, Dennis?
You put it across the whole street and it down just before. See, the problem with that street is it's so long, people can get up to speed, it's downhill. At least in where we live, there's stop signs that do break people a little bit, even though they feel like they gotta get up to maximum speed. between the
My
things.
question is, are you putting it in the middle of a block somewhere?
I don't know exactly where I think I'd put it, but I would put it somewhere where it would make people slow down before they started headed down into that.
So you're talking cashing.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Ted has done is he's given us the options, and do we have to create a new local law, or we can just do this by local resolution?
You'd have to do it by a local law for, the speed bumps.
No, I
you
know,
just do it.
right.
And
But if we
Ted-
wanna change, from a 30 to say 25,
You gotta do that by local law.
can we
So-
create a local law that says, in the village of Fayetteville, as long as the Board of Trustees follows these certain guidelines and does it linear, not neighborhood-wide, that it can be done by resolution, or do we have to go through this every time we wanna do this with the street?
I think you have, I'll double check, but I think you do have to go through it every time.
For
I've
ev-
looked at a couple other places, and what you'll see is a local law, and they've got 20 streets
Right.
designated from intersection to intersection,
Right.
So you don't have to do a separate local law for each street. If you know, we got 20 streets, and we wanna slow them down on these 20 streets. So do it in one
So
local law.
are you saying we could list every single street and do it that way? Just,
Well,
I'm just saying, I'm going to the extreme. We said we wanna do it for the entire village, we'd have to list every single street and we could do it.
So the flip side of that argument is, what you've done is you've abused the area-wide requirement, the vehicle and traffic law that says you gotta be at 30.
Okay.
Right, that's what I was asking during our Zoom meeting when we talked about this, when the comment was made that we would do it for every single street in Brookside as an example, or the neighborhood by Wellwood, or the neighborhood across the street from the Wellwood, or whatever neighborhood we do it. I don't think that lineal sections means every single street of a neighborhood, although we probably have to look at them then from what Ted just said, so we don't have to have a separate law for every street.
Yeah.
Look at the ones that would be most significant to accomplish what we're looking to accomplish. And that might mean we put some counters out and find out on, the main Brookside Street around the outside and Cashin obviously are pretty good, places to start. But those other, Pam Street, Margot and different ones, Kessler and all that go from one end to the other where they might be good too, but we can't do every single street, so I don't think we can, or we're abusing the area law.
Well,
if we do.
Cashin is already marked at 25 and all the way to Aladdin is marked all the way down
It's
there.
all marked
So it must
25 already?
have been made a law in the past. They must have sat down and
Well,
made
not
that law.
Because there was a
necessarily.
park there, that's why that was 25.
Well, it was also, yeah, but it was also made Cashin too, and that isn't a park. But,
I'm not sure how that happened, but I did not see it when I went through chapter 173. Chapter 173 basically at this point says it's 30 unless we do something different. And
Right.
I
nobody
think
did
that
anything different.
our village is very confused, or at least our neighborhood is very confused. I think that when we very first moved into that neighborhood, because the residents see that sign that says 25, they continuously, if you drive over 25, they start going like this as you drive by. And it is legal to go over 25, but they're sitting there trying to slow you down.
I wonder if it was part of the subdivision process where the planning board.
No
said
idea, but you can be
25.
going 20 and they're trying to slow you down because they're just so anxious.
No, and that's why I'm thinking like significant spots that would help encourage that kind of action and thought as people are driving, like not, if we can't do a whole area of it, which I would be in favor of, but if we can't do that, then do we look at certain places that would be significant where people will get that mindset and like you describing that people already tend to have and continue that, help foster that.
Well, I
thought,
think that it's easy enough to say that all of the streets that are going Kessler, Woodmancy, and Margot that are going this way,
Uh-huh,
they already, you are not gonna get any momentum.
true. No, that's kind of my
So
point,
only
like
the ones that are leaving the neighborhood are the ones that are picking up speed to go out.
or come in,
Those are
obviously,
the
because
ones
they're
that
coming
are
from a
going to
busy
need a
street.
little more control.
But there's other examples. There's Mott Road that, that
Yeah.
people can get going on. There's,
Yeah,
there's,
anything-
Colin and Linden where they come down from the Little League and they get up speed.
They get up to speed on
Right,
Franklin.
Elm
too.
Street, we've helped a little bit, but there's other areas in the village, and Pat had a good point. He said, we have all the linear links for all the roads in the village through a CHIPS inventory. So we can break it down because we have that CHIPS inventory.
Especially where people walk dogs and walk to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be awful confusing if you're gonna get it like Brookside route, you're gonna have some streets 30, some
Well,
they're not-
25, so, wouldn't it?
but they're not
Well,
marked.
I was gonna say, I go the negative
I
to
think
this
so,
because
too.
I would be, obviously, as you guys know, when I started doing this, I
Huh?
wanted to
We
lower
don't
the
have
speed
the
limits.
speed
This
limit
is
sign, so-
the first time we've broached this issue. The problem with doing it in Brookside is now it becomes an enforcement problem and also, not a problem, but these are the downsides. It's an enforcement problem because the police are gonna have a hard time enforcing it. They have to now know where it is, and that makes it harder for them. And number two, you're gonna have signs everywhere, because as soon as you start changing it, you have to sign it. You can't, because residents would never know if you're coming off of one street and it changes the speed limits, all of a sudden now you have to have speed limit signs everywhere. So that's the downside, and it is a really nice neighborhood, and all of a sudden you got signs popping up everywhere. If you chose to do, say, the longer streets where you can get up to speed on a number of those roads. But,
I agree,
I'm,
I agree.
Well, I think what we should do now is just kind of take Ted's thing, put our street list together of streets that we think. And I think we'll have some commonality in those. And then maybe we try, like we've done in the past. We've tried a few things, see if it works, see if it helps, and then move forward.
Ted, so we can take Franklin, which goes by the school, down to 15?
Frank?
Yeah, subject, it depends upon what grades are there, whether there's supposed to be a supervised school crossing,
There is,
and a couple other things.
and it's, so the
Yeah.
school itself is 5 through 8.
What
So
there's,
it's-
it's 20 there now.
I know, and people cook down that road because they can get up to
On
speed.
Franklin?
Oh, man, absolutely. Yeah.
Not if they're dropping their kids off to
They're
school.
frank.
Oh, no, they're fine because they're late to get their kids to school.
Not when the
Listen,
line's
I
all the way
lived
back
that for a
to
long
them.
time. I
Franklin?
walk on it all the time. I think people cook down that road.
I'm not.
We almost got hit the other night because someone just came flying around the corner and never even thought twice of stopping.
Well, that's, you're talking about, boy,
It's-
I've never
it's tough.
seen them going fast.
I want the trustees to create a list of streets that they think are a problem area in the village, that we could possibly do this linear, redoing of the speed limit and see, we don't, listen, I don't think, in the village, it's not the whole village. But there are some areas that Cash and Drive is a perfect example. It's a hot spot, maybe Brookside Lane, where they get these long stretches where they can get going.
Yeah.
So maybe we look at those, and yes, it may confuse people in the beginning, but over time, and enforcement's gonna be the big issue, but we gotta start somewhere, so.
And if they see a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, maybe that would just encourage them to go 25 no matter what, what. They might not have to see every single sign, they might not even see a sign if you put it up, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a-
How many do you want us to keep it to?
Just,
I
I
think
just
you
started
put
my
everything
list,
and
and
we
I,
find the
Should
common
be.
ones.
just want, just start, listen, at the end of the day, we might go, oh yeah, I have that, I have that, I have that. 3 of us might have the same street,
Alright.
so you might, and 2 of us might have one. Oh no, you know what, I didn't think of that one, yeah, so, put your list together.
Just so you know, Sheffield Lane is in the code as 25 from Route 257
Right.
down to the church.
Good.
It's because it's.
That wasn't on my list,
Technically,
but-
it's a dead end.
Now with the sidewalk. Okay, Ted, have we heard anything, number 9, town noise ordinance, have we heard anything from Mr. Fateschi? Have they made any changes, have they?
I haven't,
Okay.
I haven't heard from Tim. I've bugged him. I did, got it with me.
What are you looking for, Mark?
Well, we talked last time, and we were gonna go back and see if the town, some of our ideas or concerns. And if Sarah's still on, if Sarah Bollinger's on, she can call 315-952-3795, just so we could hear if the town still hasn't passed it, so I
No,
know.
they haven't passed it.
Yeah, so I
I
just
talked
wanted
to-
to see, we went back and we had some changes.
I talked to Allison today. No,
So,
they haven't passed it.
okay. So I just wanted to keep it on, I'll put it on the
Yeah,
next.
I've done an initial draft.
Right, we
of
had
it
that,
for
and
a
you gave
while.
that to us, yeah. Or you
Manoa's
gave-
passed
We
it.
have,
No, you got the town.
okay,
I've
Okay.
done one for the village.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I
Under
got-
the assumption if the town adopts its local law, we'll
okay,
make changes to ours so they parallel each other.
I got the village.
Okay.
I got the village of Manoa, the village Fayetteville, the village of Manlius, and the town.
Okay.
can you
Well,
give Lori, or do
The
you have copies
existing
for everybody?
ones?
What?
The existing codes or proposed changes to
Both.
each?
I have the proposed changes, and I have the code for the.
In the village of Manoa has proposed changes already?
No, they accepted the towns,
Oh,
they've
They
already
did,
passed it.
yeah, in that draft copy that they sent us, they approved that one.
They passed it.
So Lori,
Yeah.
Lori will get us a copy of all those.
The big change for the village compared to what the town is that the village said, or, I'm sorry, the town's draft local law says you can be loud from 9 AM to 9 PM, and you gotta be quiet from 9 PM to 9 AM. Our current code has different time limits, and so the draft that I did, I tried to incorporate the current village time limits as to when you can be loud and when you gotta be quiet.
And the police already told me they didn't like it.
Okay.
Okay,
They
so
want-
Lori will
they
get us a
want it
copy of the
consistent.
draft, and I'll put it on the next agenda.
Yep, okay.
Okay. DPW small, trustees, or DPW trustee small.
You're fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Pat's project list, and the open projects are, this DPW is still under the lockdown for public accessibility, but if anybody needs something from the DPW, they may call 315-637-6065 for any needs, or if they need blue bins, recycling bins, they're available there. Open projects, beyond that, sanitary sewer calls are still being handled somewhat by the DPW, so they should notify the DPW, and they will go on those first, and then they'll reach out to the county after that. Baird Pond, the weather, of course, is changing. It's supposed to be warm this week, 50s maybe, so we may be through with the ice for the season. But they did a good job for what they had to work with and when they could work there, so appreciate that on behalf of the residents and the people that got to ice skate this year. Ledyard Dyke, we talked about the clearing on Route 92 is an ongoing thing which will be happening in the spring of this year. Calder Park, the tree that was cut down and the path were started today and will be continued as they have availability to work now that the weather's a little better. And unless it gets too wet and muddy, then they have to stop. But on cold, clear days like this without the snow, they can get in there and work pretty easily. The Main Street grant, they'll be doing some of that work, and some of it will be continuing a little bit later on in the spring along Mott Road to complete that sidewalk. Working up a quote for the LED upgrade on some of our streetlights. Within that also. Limestone Bishop Brook bids are back, and that will be beginning. The bridges, as we've talked about in the past, and the right-of-way permit, as we've talked about in the past. The tree that we discussed at 208 Center Street that sits by the bank and is deteriorating, and the homeowner had concerns about it. National Grid has agreed to cut down that tree as a favor to us, and the DPW will remove the wood and the brush. That'll be done this week, Thursday or Friday, I believe. Couple other things. We have a resignation of Jake Schultz from the DPW. He was a temporary worker. So I'd make a motion that we would accept. Effective Friday, that we would accept his resignation.
Moved and seconded. He's one of these ones that just helped us out. He's a fireman. He was trying to become a firefighter EMT, so he got another job. So,
Okay.
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
To replace him, I would make a motion that we would hire Taylor Jones as another temporary worker. He would seek full-time employment in the future, but for right now, we have the ability to offer him a temporary worker position beginning April 1st.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We have he did retirement,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So we have a retirement of a longtime DPW worker.
326,
What's that?
March 26th.
As of March 26th, William Way. Make that in the form of a motion, if you
So
want to,
moved.
Dan.
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then I would make a motion that we would rehire Billy Way after his retirement.
Second.
Under the same parameters that we've made with former DPW people that have retired, same
The same.
package
yeah,
type
this
of
Pat that we just did.
Second.
employment.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
And then I have the spring workshop for the highway department. And I'm not sure if Pat wants to do these online or in person, but the registration fee for in-person workshops are $10 a piece. And I think it looks like it's in Ithaca, so there might be some travel or something, but I would make a motion that we would authorize Pat and, I don't know if he wants Billy to, or Danny to go too, but I would authorize the DPW superintendent at his discretion with any other employee attend these workshops, and that we would fund them according to the rates that are here.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else for the DPW?
I got one thing. They put the bird sanctuary sign up.
Really?
It's
Did I give you my agenda?
It's
with a
up.
piece of paper?
No.
I got a problem though.
I don't know what I did.
The neighbors down there, the neighbors down there told me to put it parallel with the hybrid, so take a look when you're down there
Okay.
sometime.
And I handed you back his application.
Right the
I
I
opposite.
gave it to Lori.
Right
Oh,
opposite of.
Did I give you
Audubon.
my agenda with that? No?
I had
Okay.
something in
I don't know
my
where it
camp.
Okay, fire department, trustee Kinsella, applications?
Yep.
That's fine.
Joseph
Grab it here somewhere. Oh, it's under here, probably.
Wants to be a firefighter and works with EMS, so moved.
Second.
Seconded. All the background checks and everything's good?
Everything's good?
I didn't hear the name.
I'm gonna give it to
Oh, okay.
Joseph, it's
Okay.
Pranos.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Lori, that's gonna go up in 5 minutes, just so you know.
No, I,
And, I don't know. We got a temporary hire.
Okay. This is a part-time
Part-time.
hire, Matthew Goki. And he works for the Syracuse City Fire right now. He's a paramedic. And he has worked with Manoa in the past and DeWitt Fire District, so he's aware of our
So
district.
moved. It's
Second.
And at the part-time rate.
At the part-time rate.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any purchases?
Don't have anything. Unless Lori's got something.
No, we have the extra Tahoe from the town of Manlius. The chief of police has offered it to us for $1 lease. And the chief would like us to go ahead and make that arrangement, so we need a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with the town for $1 lease. We would give it back when we're done. But they have a 2016 Ford Explorer that they're willing to let us use, so the chief would like to try it and see if it works.
So moved.
So,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, I don't think this is Paul. I just wanna make sure. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I don't know, Pat just sent it to me, I don't know if everybody got a chance, but if you're up near Coulter Park, we put the sign on the back. So it got all redone, the original
Oh,
sign.
Yeah.
Pam sent an email.
I sent it to
Yeah.
everybody.
I didn't, when
I
did you
got
send
your-
it?
The-
Oh, I didn't send it to you because I
Didn't
thought
send
you
it to
already
them.
saw it.
Oh,
I saw it.
I saw your email.
Okay, I
This
didn't get
morning.
it, so,
I was up there.
it's on the back, so it looks very
I
Looks
should
nice.
send an
great.
email out saying.
That looks
it was up.
great.
Can we do a thank you letter to Eric Garankars, one of our firefighter paramedics?
I was impressed. It's
Took the
real
time.
solid,
So
man.
I wanna, well, it's put onto a backing board, it's not a solid, it had to
Well,
be
it's
put on,
bolted,
so.
like, boom.
Did you wanna talk about the police reform under this, or did you wanna talk under a round table?
I just want everybody to take a look at it.
Okay.
They're talking about it on Wednesday night. So I don't know if you want to say anything about it.
Well, I reviewed it, over the weekend, and I do have comments.
Okay.
There's a section in it, while I think it's, the plan seems to be well thought out.
I had a few comments at the police meeting about it.
If you look, it says, the current town, under police committee, the current town of Manlius Police Committee is formed based on the 1984 mutual aid agreement from when the village departments are merged. This agreement needs to be reviewed and updated to align with the needs and goals of the community. That's gotta be done at the 3 villages in the town level. That is not something that this advisory committee should, this is looking at police reform. This is not looking at an agreement that is actually safeguarding our residents and our assets that we turned over.
What page?
That's page 4,
Four.
under police committee.
For what it's worth, I circled the exact same
Okay.
piece, I agree with you
And
100%.
then, you know, under community engagement, you know, listen, the one way to get people, elected officials that are in charge of these budgets and that are in charge of looking at police accountability and community engagement is to do a ride-along. Get in that police car and spend a shift with those police officers and see what they go through. For all these elected officials, I've done it. I've done it in the fire trucks for years. Some of you have been over, Dan's been on fire trucks, Mike's been over there. I know Dennis, Pam. You guys have got to go and do this. It's an eye-opening experience to be in that police car and to drive with those police officers and see what they go through on a daily basis. So I think that should be part of this, that elected officials need to be in those cars and do a ride-along. I think that we're not doing any justice to the people that are there to serve on their budgets and their, and draft this plan without going and doing a ride-along. I just think that's something that's sorely missing in this. And when it comes to community relations, and they talk about this in the next page, I mean, the person would be, how do we afford to do that when they're complaining about the police budget throughout this whole document? You want to add a community relations officer, which I think would be a great idea, but do we have the funds to do that? So I think the plan overall is good, but I think there's some parts of this that really need to be looked at. And I think, this ride-along is something that all elected officials should have to do, and should do, because they can see what's going on. So I don't know when the next meeting is, Dan, and I don't know if anybody, I know we have representation.
Well, no, wait, now there's two different things. This is not the police committee,
When's the next police committee meeting?
not until,
Next month.
Okay.
no, yeah, but late April,
Yeah.
yeah. But they have to have this submitted by, April 1st.
Right.
And, they're meeting on it on Wednesday night.
I agree with Mark. I've done ride-alongs with police and EMS, and it's eye-opening, and if you haven't done one, you really should
Does
go
it
spend a
say
day
how-
with them. It's
Oh,
an
they don't
amazing
even mention it.
experience.
They don't mention it. It's not even mentioned in there.
What?
As an idea to really, to get a perspective from,
Oh.
it's like, the town board, Sarah and Elaine, when we went through the whole thing next door with the fire budget, and they got a chance to tour the firehouse, they came away with a totally different respect. And we said to them, spend a shift, do a shift next door and see what they do, the training, the equipment checks, the going on calls, go through that day, evolution, and you can see exactly what happens and what we do and why we do it and how much it costs. It should be the same thing for the
How do
police
you
department.
get an appointment or?
You just call over
You
and
just
you
call,
just
Yeah,
ask.
they schedule it
Just,
easy.
just get a hold of it.
You have to fill out some
Easy to
paperwork and you
schedule
just
it,
ask.
okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you write those things out and give them to me, and I'll make
Okay.
sure they hear them Wednesday night.
But everybody should take the time and go through this, because there's some really good stuff in that document. So,
What, this?
yeah, yep. Okay, round table. So I'm gonna go first because I have a lot and I apologize. So the budget is going to be put in your mailbox in the next day or two. I will give you the highlights real quick. Lori and I met Friday. Our overall village assessed value went up 4.5% year over year. Our proposed budget is the same tax rate as this year. Our overall spending in that proposed tax rate is down $33,000. Our health insurance costs went up $45,000. Our pension costs went up $33,000. Our recycling charge that we didn't have last year was $17,000.
Up?
Up. I put $5,000 in for a new communication committee. I put $10,000 in for a upgrade or I'm not using the right word, to update our comprehensive plan. The Fayetteville Cares program, and this can be debated, but I wanted to do $750 for 4 organizations. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Easter, take 4 holidays, give $750 to the Recreation Commission, $700 to the Firemen's Association, $750 to the PBA, $750 to a senior center, and have them go out into our community for the people that need it the most. Give baskets away, help people out. I came up with that by taking a pay cut of $1,000 as mayor and trustees of $500. That came up with the $3,000 needed for that program. And that, again, can be discussed, but I think it's time to give back to these communities. People in Fayetteville need help, and this is a way for the trustees to show our gratitude to the residents that we serve by giving back to these programs. The reserves and the trucks in our DPW, this is the last year of our big spike, as Dennis has showed, and we'll look at that. Our DPW labor, with Billy retiring, we have 1 open position, so the plan is to fill that position as of June 1st, and that will give us 10 plus Pat and Danny. The fire building, the fire next door, the fire department did the 10% cuts and the 5% cuts that were required and asked. Our building will be paid off in the 25-26 budget year. The DPW building would be paid off in the 24-25 building. CHIPS is going to finish, all the CHIPS money that we get will be finishing to pay off or to finish Brookside and paving that we're not done with yet. And again, as I said, the leases came off in the DPW. This is a tough year for the DPW. But the budget is almost done. Lori and I just need to meet on a few other revenue lines. The court we took down dramatically, and there was some other areas that we took down in the revenue side. But I want to thank the trustees. I didn't cut anybody's budget. I didn't go through and redline anything this year. Everything that was submitted got put in. So the plan that you're going to see is exactly what each department had put in. But I just want to let people know that the tax rate will stay the same and our overall spending is down with some of these new initiatives. I'm going to skip the Easter egg hunt and Memorial Day parade. Solicitor's application, Lori. We have the fish, John Seafood.
Weather permitting, he doesn't have a date yet, he's looking, when it breaks, he's hoping sometime in April, he would like to come back in the spot under the bridge.
Do we have any concerns under the bridge?
No,
Anybody have
I
any
don't,
issues?
as long as it's under the bridge.
I think the bridge is good,
Okay.
under the bridge.
So we need a motion to go ahead and approve the solicitor's application.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is, we need to have a public hearing at our next meeting for the community development. We have to put a 5-year plan together, and the community development is, we can use that money at the senior center. So this year is a perfect example. Part of the proceeds of the project, we got $40,000 from community development to help with the kitchen. So I was with Tony and everybody at the mayor's dinner this weekend and asked him to give me a list of things that they want to do. So like, give you a perfect example, gutters. They're tan in some sections and there's no gutters in some sections, so we're gonna, that'll be one of the list items. And we have to put together a 5-year plan. So we need a motion to go ahead and have a community development public hearing at our next meeting on or around 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The Route 81 letter, you'll all get a copy of that in your mailbox. We're just finishing it up a little bit. But we met with talked with all the other mayors, and there was a couple wordsmiths, but that's going to be going out very soon. The recycling letter, Dan, Karen's bugging me. We will get that out to everybody, and we'll put that on the next agenda. The newsletter, I talked to Karen, and it's basically through the departments and the budget. So we'll release all the data. Dennis, I'm going to get with you so that we can do those charts and get that done. I want to thank everybody for all their help with the mayor's turkey dinner and all the support of the community. We sold 275 plus, about 100 more than we have in the past. So I want to thank especially Mike and Dennis and Dan and Pam for your donation and all your help. It was a great day, and I think it was a great day for the senior center and the senior community. We're going to raise close to $5,000, and 100% of that was donated by everybody in our community. So I want to thank everybody for their help. Easter egg hunt. What is our position? Pam and I got to drive around in the suit last year and wave to people. It was last minute. I don't know how well received it was, but Pam was cold and I had a nice time. But I still think we're still a little bit on that edge.
I think we should, I
Okay.
don't think we should do it.
So I think instead of driving around to neighborhoods, we should advertise and have the Easter egg, or the Easter egg bunny, the bunny at the senior center and do a drive-through like we did for the mayor's dinner. If people want to bring their kids to see the Easter bunny and hand them a bag of candy, I think that's something that we could do.
Do we have the new
easily.
costume? Did we get the new costume last year that we talked about?
That's what I wore last year, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, I don't mind you driving around. I'm fine with that too. But I mean, if you just have one date, one time, a couple hours, people can come through there. If they want to see the Easter bunny, they can do that and get a bag of candy. Then we're gonna give away.
Yeah, when we run out of candy, the kids.
That just might be a.
I think that we can come out of our shell a little more, whereas last year we were really tethered to our homes.
Mhm.
So I think it is a good idea that people can actually leave their homes and come to the bunny and get come up and take some candy. It could be in a bucket, we can leave it. It doesn't have to be too close to the bunny if we still feel a little
Well, I
every
think if you
once-
had,
Well, it's
all
no
I'm
different
thinking
than
of
what we
is
did
if
at
you had
the-
somebody with
the
a glove
seniors'
hand in
dinner.
hand.
The
Right.
dinner we
Yeah.
did, I
Right.
mean, we handed people stuff through the car and that was that. And everyone's
Pam-
masked up and gloved up.
So
I
why don't we plan on that?
Eh,
Um,
We do have
Yeah.
150 people approved for weddings now in this state, so
Right.
surely we can,
Well, this is gonna be outside and it's gonna be.
yeah, it's
you know,
gonna
so-
all be outside.
So you can do the hunt if you, I mean, you can
Yeah.
put the eggs out if you wanted, that's up to you
No,
guys.
no,
I
no,
don't care.
I like
but
the
I'm-
idea of the drive-through.
I just think for this year, maybe a
Drive-through's good.
drive-through, then maybe next year we can do that. And if you wanted to, we could hide an egg somewhere in the village and whoever finds it could win a prize.
Right.
Like the coin from the papers.
Okay, okay,
We
so
can
let's,
give 'em
let's
hints.
plan on Pam, let's start to
A
put together the
drive-through.
drive-through.
Okay.
And then, Memorial Day Parade.
Yes.
This is,
I'd
this
say
is
that.
gonna take some logistics and
We're doing.
I, personally, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm thinking, I still just have to run it by, you know, the county government, just to make sure that they're still good. But I think that, you know, like Dennis said, if we're getting better and we're getting there and we're getting vaccinated, people are gonna be smart enough, if people are too close, they're gonna get separated. I don't know if we're gonna get as much participation from some of the organizations, just because, you know, they're not set up for it yet. But I would like to think that, you know,
They'll
I
wear
I would like to
masks.
think we tried.
right.
And no matter what happens.
I'd
we
like
gave
to
it an
try.
effort.
However big
figure
or
out
small it is,
Right.
it should happen to honor the veterans, I
Yes.
believe. Yep.
Okay, so, Lori, if you can get with Karen and Pam, we need to start that process, at least start the planning process. You know, again, this is tentative, and with guidance from the county and the state.
Yeah.
But if you hear all the
Like,
statements
we
on
won't
the
get the school
radio.
bands, the school bands won't do it.
No, but if you hear on the news, they're talking about
They're not even playing, Dan.
immunity and people
They might be by
Are you
then.
sure?
by
Because I know that
May,
It's
so.
all remote.
bands are playing.
They're not playing. I mean, my son's in the music
Right.
department, they're not
Okay.
playing, they're playing.
So right
supper.
now, tentatively, we will have, I will let you know that I don't know if he'll do it, but I think that the county executive has done an amazing job during this pandemic. I think he has been somebody that has just kept the community informed, done a nice job, really worked hard at this, and I think he would be I don't think he'd do it, but I think he would be an amazing parade marshal in our way to say thank you to him. So I put that out there because I think that was
Yeah.
something that we
I'm
should
sorry,
do.
who did you say? What person?
County executive, Ryan McMahon.
If he won't, I got somebody.
Okay.
I got somebody.
So, okay, good. So Dennis, I'll let you go roundtable.
I'm good.
Pam,
Just associated with the upcoming newsletter, we have, the communication committee will have a link or a note in this upcoming letter for us to have a survey that you can, everybody can comment on it so that we can gather some information for people to be able to comment on things about communications. We
Oh,
hope that
yeah.
everybody will answer that survey.
okay, good.
Hey, Mark, actually, I remember one thing. We're gonna, the Parks Committee and I, on Thursday, are gonna go measure out, do good to see how much a dog park would cost. We'll price it out and we'll go from there.
Don't forget, we have a Boy Scout that's looking at that, Eagle
Right.
Scout.
So we can start doing that work and we'll get it measured out. If you're
When we-
around Thursday, we're going.
Just so you know, when we looked at it before, it was split in half, small dog, big dog.
Yep.
So just, and we have water up there.
Yep, and you can get into the woods a little bit, I think.
Yep, yep.
Which should be.
Dan,
No.
Mike,
I gave everybody, because I talked about this a couple of meetings ago, a proposal from J&J Landscaping to fix the brick pavers by Beard Park Pond. So make a motion that we would authorize them to come in and fix those pavers and
Second.
block them in so that they don't get thrown in the pond anymore.
Where are we getting the money for that, man?
Well, it is a park.
Take it out of the parks budget. I don't think we've spent.
It's parked.
we
If we're gonna
we
have
money
things,
this-
we
have
gotta
money from
maintain
this
them, and
year in
if
it.
kids
Yeah,
or
you're
people
absolutely right.
destroy them, I mean,
I totally agree.
I
It's
think
always
we
good
got,
to know where the money's coming.
well, Lori's writing a check.
so
We have to
we have
tell
a
her
motion, we have a motion and a second.
Where
Any
to write it.
comments? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
that's all I have.
Lori? Did I get everything? Chad, you're good? Okay, last thing is number 13. Up at by Wellwood, we have an empty sign right now. We had the 175th. So I'd like to propose that we do a sign that says "Buy local, support local" with our logo and a picture of the block. Karen's working on it right now. I think it's so important right now that people when they come out of their shells and they start going out to support local businesses, even though the village doesn't receive any sales tax dollars from these local businesses, it's still important for jobs, for our kids and for our communities and get these people back on their feet. So I'd like to make a motion that we purchase this sign, put it in there, and then when we have an opening, we'll obviously, if somebody wants to use that sign and do something, we'll just put their sign up. But I think it's important that we take the time, especially with this pandemic. They've been crushed, and I think we can do our little part to help them out. So I'd like to make that in the form of a motion that we purchase this sign.
Second.
Second.
How much is it?
It doesn't say on here.
It's not very expensive.
So
isn't
it's
it?
Allied sign. So they gave us one that was a little bit washed out and it looked, so I had her just clear it and they sent us a nice clear. It's got our logo on it and it's that simple. I think it's really important to support local businesses right now.
Like a couple $100?
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna exceed 300. So, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Just along that same subject, I think before we allow anybody to use that sign, we need to have a discussion about what goes there.
Okay.
Unlike this sign out here, which we're familiar with and how it works, I think we gotta just have a discussion about what we want or don't want in that particular sign area.
Okay. All right. We need a motion to adjourn?
Ted has
Oh,
it.
sorry, Ted.
I was just wondering, do you have any idea if the village would get any money as a result of this national COVID package?
I spoke with the president, or the executive director of NICOM today. We haven't, other than the reporting that I've heard from the Eagle Bulletin, we don't know what the number is, but we are tallying our COVID expenses, and we are going through that. One of the things that if that money does come, one of the problems that NICOM is trying to stop is the governor wants to hold the money and then distribute it. But this federal legislation says that it has to come from the state, but they can't touch it. So it's a pass-through. If that money does come through, then there's a lot of things that this village can do to help with projects that we've had or done or will do to put us on a sound footing. So,
Just curious.
but yeah, we'll know more hopefully at the next meeting. Right now, I know that they've released it for the cities, or the counties, the cities, but the towns and villages, that amount hasn't been released. And until he signs it, until I see a check, don't spend money you don't have, and that's what we're gonna do. Okay, need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Pam, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
Well, I missed my son's birthday.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the gig.
My husband's calling me.
Have to, the way it goes.
I just didn't know if we're gonna see that sign, well, like, for obviously, the fence and the